work will be remembered as one of the greatest moments of this planet.
Mr. Scout. I know you're still weighing whether to return to Lumen. But the Mark I've come to know is happy.
Hello, is anyone there? Is the board on? It's Marquez from Macro...
What you all did was one of the most painful moments in the history of this company.
What the hell?
But the four of you have become known as the face of Severance reform.
Okay, so we're not in trouble?
I don't think so. Milchick said we're famous.
All of us equally, or one of us is like the star?
Now if you feel that you can't go on.
So what the hell did you guys see up there?
It's not our world up there.
And your life is filled with much confusion.
My Audi's wife died a few years ago. Except the woman is Miss Casey.
So what are you gonna do?
I gotta get her out of here.
Mark, your Annie said she's alive.
This is obscene.
I just want to be sure.
And your world around is coming down.
Why did you do this? What is this all about?
Do you know something about Gemma?
Mark, there'll be no honeymoon ending for you.
The work will be remembered as one of the greatest moments of this planet.
You don't value them. You fear them. We fear no one.
I'm tightening the leash.
If we let this happen to Miss Casey, who's gonna step up when it happens to us?
Now. Goodbye, Marquez.
Wait!
My name is Miss Huang. It's my first day here as deputy manager. Mark W.
Why are you a child?
Because of when I was born.
Mysterious elevator reveals itself. Welcome one, welcome all to Severance Saturday, the Sevies Saturday as it was. And boy, do we have a very interesting episode in episode 5 entitled Trojan's Horse, where we got to see some interesting reveals, some interesting aftermath, really. I mean, this is really the aftermath episode in a sense, isn't it? After all of the crazy stuff we got in episode 4, the big revelations, the devastating losses. Episode 5 was very much an aftermath episode and seeing how exactly all of this craziness is going to play out and how is it going to affect the MDR team and the severed floor going forward. And I think we feel that presence and that impact super early on in this episode, and it's felt throughout, of course, with the loss of Irving, which we see in multiple different representations in the episode and in the MDR floor itself. But overall, definitely an interesting aftermath episode, seeing how everything is going to play out, how the chips are ultimately going to land, and see what's going to happen going forward. I get the feeling that the second half of season 2, from here on out, episode 6 on, definitely get the sense that we are going to start focusing, obviously, on the mysterious hallway. I think the mysterious hallway is the ultimate end game for season 2. That is probably where the season 2 finale is heading, that plus whatever Cold Harbor is. But I think we're going to have some interesting hallway testing room floor scenes over the next 2 or 3 episodes as we finally learn a little bit more about this mysterious hallway. And welcome, Dr. Ricken PM. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you so much for having me. I completely
Oh,
agree. I think that that's gonna be the end, right? That hallway.
gotta be. Gotta be. I mean, it seems like it's gotta be. I mean, Irving leaving, and it was very interesting to see what Irving left. Obviously, it was the drawing of the hallway and the elevator itself. But then, I remember when we saw it in the preview, and we were trying to make out this writing on the back. Did he leave some kind of note or something, and it's not a note, it's directions. He leaves directions to the hallway on the back of that sheet. If you look a little bit
Yeah.
closer at it, and I do believe I have the still that we can take a look at, um, when Dylan finally finds it behind the hang in there poster, which of course the famous hang in there poster, it kind of clicked in Dylan's mind when he saw the poster. He thought of Irving and Irving's last words to him, and luckily enough, he had the presence of mind to check it out and see what he can see. And lo and behold, he finds the drawing of the mysterious elevator, mysterious hallway and elevator. But then on the back, we see some interesting writing. It starts with a little bit, very small note, but then we have right, left, left, right, right, left, right, left. How many freaking hallways are in Lumen? What the fuck? The seventh floor must be so big. Right, right, left, left, yada, yada, yada. Long hallway turn, yada, yada, all the way down at the hall, the long hallway. So he's basically leaving directions to what he believes will lead them to this mysterious hallway. Is he trying to set them on the path to finding Gemma?
Oh, for sure. I think that's what he was referring to, right? When he
Hmm.
says he makes this mysterious phone call. Once again, we see him at the phone booth, and he
Mm.
says, "I think that they found out what my innie was up to." So since his
Ah,
innie is no longer able to complete that mission, I'm guessing that he left this for them to complete that part of the mission. What's really interesting is that during the memorial, the funeral service, right?
mm,
Dylan says, and he mentions specifically that Irvin asked them for help for something and he didn't help him. So I think that he's going to carry that with him. The fact that
ah,
Irving asked him to do something, he didn't listen. Irving was right at the end. So now he's more likely to carry out this plan even though he has this perk, right, that he doesn't want to lose. I think
mhm,
that that tells us that he has that guilt about not helping him, not believing him, and it
yeah.
might be enough to get him to kind of rebel, right?
It might. I think it might be, and I think that's going to be. I think that's going to be Dylan's path going forward. I think you're right. We're going to see him kind of walking this tightrope for a little while trying to, remain as loyal as he can, so we can keep those perks coming. While also, yes, I imagine he's going to feel a little bit indebted, as you mentioned, to helping Irving, knowing that he didn't believe him at first. He saw what happened in the end, and that's the last thing he screams to Irving. I should have listened. So yeah, I
Mhm.
think you're right. I think he's definitely at least going to feel a little beholden to try and carry out Irving's wishes in a sense, while also trying to again walk that tightrope so he doesn't lose this other perk that he really seems to be invested in. And I wonder if that's going to become a problem for him if his loyalties are going to get really tested to the point where he's going to have to choose one or the other.
Oh, for sure. I think that that's where we're going with Dylan's story. And
Mm,
you have pointed this out, right? When you did your end game video about what is it all going to look like. And so far, what you
yeah.
pointed out was right on point. What it's going to look like, it's a lot of heartbreak.
Oh,
Nobody's
yeah.
like, I just don't see anybody getting a happy ending here with like a fairy tale, right? Cobell
Yeah.
says, there will be no honeymoon ending for you, Mark, right? Or fairy tale ending. And I think
Yeah.
that that is for everybody involved, the repercussions of what they have to do. I think he's gonna have to choose between the promises that he made to this woman, right, his wife, and the fact that this was his best friend, really.
Yeah.
Irving was his best friend. And I know
Yeah.
that we hate it when corporations say, like, we're your family, right? But in a
Yeah.
way, they are family.
They are. I mean, especially the innies in a sense, because they're kind of born into this world all in the exact same manner. And not only in the same manner, but they're born literally into the same world where all they do is share an office space. This is their whole life. They don't go outside the office. They don't have a family to go home to. They don't have friends outside. Like this is everything. This is the only thing they will ever know. So yeah, in a sense, absolutely. I feel like the innies, they're family. They are essentially a family, these four. And I think we felt that very much this season in particular. Like I think what you mentioned with Dylan and Irving in particular. They seem to be the closest, like just in terms of like pure friendship. We know Mark and Helly are starting to fall for each other in that, but in terms of just like a pure friendship, it seemed like Dylan and Irving were the closest. They were best friends, and we saw everything Irving did to try and keep everything Dylan did rather to try and keep Irving from quitting the first time at the beginning of the season when Irving wanted to just give up, and Milchick gives the innies the choice. If you want to leave, leave. If you want to do your work, stay. And Irving was really considering leaving. He wanted, as you mentioned, he wanted the pain to be over. He wanted the sadness to be done. He had lost Bert. He had lost the person he loved right after meeting him too, which is even tougher. And yeah, he just wanted it to be over. Dylan was the only thing that kind of pulled him back from the abyss. And then we see him do this a few episodes later, where he does have that last kind of heroic stand where not only does he help bring Helly back, but he also confronts his sadness for Bert in the process, with him kind of taming the temper of woe and the vision he had. So yeah, Irving kind of comes full circle, and the friendship that he and Dylan had was a huge catalyst to that. And yeah, I can totally see, like you said, I think that's going to be Dylan's story arc going forward for the rest of this season, straddling that line in terms of which one am I more loyal to, this new perk, this my Audi's family who I'm also forming an attachment to, or the memory of Irving and the friendship that we held. It's going to be tough for him. I think he's going to have a tough road.
I mean, definitely. It's like, who do you choose? And I think that would be an excellent question for the chat. Your chat knows all. You guys have been right on point. So chat, who would you choose? If you were Dylan, are you going to choose your Audi's family or Irving, your best friend?
That's a really good choice. I mean, that's a really good question. That's a tough choice. Yeah, chat, what do you guys think? I mean, Dylan is in a bit of a bind here, isn't he? I mean, he's got two paths in front of him, both of which are meaningful to him. But at the end of the day, he can't walk both simultaneously. He is going to have to choose. So yeah, does he choose his friendship in Irving, the memory of his friendship with Irving, or does he choose this potential new love with his Audi's family? Where does he go? Yeah, it's a good question. Good question. Caroline Cloud says Irv all the way. Chris B says Irving as well. We got 2 votes for Irving. Vanessa M says family. Hard choice. I mean, it's the toughest choice. Family or your closest friend. That's probably one of the toughest choices in the world. Yeah, it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough. I would try both. I mean, I think that's what he's going to try. I do think he will try both. I think he's going to do his best to, again, try and walk that very dangerous tightrope with, a flaming pit and spikes beneath him if he falls. I think he's going to try, but I think he will eventually come to the realization that it has to be one or the other.
And Milkshake made it clear, Jennifer. He kind of made it clear. He kept staring at him, right? So Dylan, I was very proud of Dylan in this episode because he was rebelling. He was saying everything that we wanted to say. He was cussing, he was cursing, he was being insubordinate, just completely like going crazy, which I think Irving is deserving of that. He's deserving of people being just outraged by the injustice of what happened. And I was so proud of Dylan. But Milkshake the entire time was just staring him, like specifically right at Dylan, like, Dylan, be quiet. I don't want to tell them this little special perk you have going on. And he finally gets sick of it. And he does mention it to Dylan and says, I would hate to rescind your perks. So
yeah. Man. He does. You're right. You're 100% right. He's already kind of threatening him with pulling it away from him, with taking it away from him. Be careful, Dylan. I'd hate to lose that, that shiny new perk of yours. He's threatening him. He's trying to keep him in line, essentially. You're totally right. Because I loved Dylan at the beginning of this episode. I totally agree. He was rebelling. He was asking questions. He was acting like a friend and not a Lumen employee. And like you said, Irving deserves that. Irving deserves to have somebody fight for him. And I think that's why you and I in particular were so kind of disappointed in Mark in this episode with how he was reacting to Helly. and
My
the
God.
reaction he was having to everything and how he was kind of cold to her at times and how wrong it is him not coming clean and telling her exactly what Helena did with her body. It's just such a violation. So it's kind of a big stark contrast, isn't it? Where we have Dylan doing everything he can to honor Irving, and here we have Mark kind of playing it the complete opposite, wrong way with Helly.
Oh, not just with Helly. I mean, I could go on and on about Mark. He was, this was not our any Mark. He was not our bright eye, happy
No.
Mark that we
Yeah.
know. This was definitely a Mark that is um, showing more traits of his Audi self. He was sarcastic. He was completely like just an a-hole to everybody.
Yeah.
Also, the comment he made about Irving's funeral, saying, as long as it doesn't take all day.
Oh
That
my
was
God.
so rude.
It
So he
was.
was like that to everyone, including Milkshake. He was rude to everybody.
He was, like, it wasn't his normal self, and I don't know if it's the reintegration, I don't know if it's him feeling guilty for what happened on the Ortbo and not telling Helena. I mean, not telling Helly. I don't know, like, what's going on with him, but he was not himself. Like you said, he wasn't his normal chipper, bright-eyed, as you mentioned, smiling any Mark, and that's kinda how Mark is, and that was one thing we always noticed in season 1 when they're in the elevator or when he's in the elevator in particular, and we see him switch from Audi to Innie. We see a sullen, sunken, frown face just turn to like a regular, normal, not like a huge smiling face or anything, but a super sullen and sad face turn into like kind of like a regular chipper face, like I'm ready to start the day kind of thing. Like, it was like a total different mindset that both of these Marks were in. And yeah,
Mhm.
now any Mark is starting to act a lot more like Audi Mark. He is. It's very noticeable and how cold he's being. He's very distant with her in this episode. He's not very understanding to what she was going through. And I think he's ultimately kind of looking at it like he's the only victim here. And he's certainly not. Like, she's probably
Mhm.
the biggest victim, probably is the biggest victim here,
Yeah.
with everything that Helena did to her and took from her, especially taking that experience from her. Something that is, she can never take back, something that she can
Yeah.
never do for the first time again, especially with someone like Mark, who she was falling for.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was just completely messed up all around. I was not expecting Mark to act that cold towards her.
Exactly. It was a complete and total shock and a surprise to me because he was kind of like one of my favorites. And I didn't expect that from him. When I think about any Mark, I think about just like a really nice person, somebody who does want to do the right thing. He was always so kind to Helly. Um, she didn't want to work there, and he was so patient. And the way he would look at her, I just keep
Yes.
remembering, like he would look at her with these like puppy dog eyes, and just he was amazed, right, at who
Yeah.
Helly was and how
Yeah.
strong she was and how fierce she was. And in this episode, he was such a like mean person to her. When she says, "You didn't realize it wasn't me," which he should have, he says obviously, which that in itself,
Um,
that's super rude. Instead of just saying yes, no, he begins by obviously. Like, don't bother me, don't talk to me. She Now we see her following him around like a puppy dog, wanting answers, wondering why all of a sudden he's being so mean and cold to her. And that to me says it's more of an Audi Mark style of dealing with problems, of not
yeah.
wanting to be responsible. I mean,
Yeah.
being severed to avoid the pain of losing your wife, that in itself shows a lack of responsibility, a lack of wanting to
Yes.
own what your life is. And this is what Innie was doing. He did not want to own the fact that she was a victim. He needed to tell her something, and he participated in her victimhood because he was a
Yeah.
participant. Even though he wasn't willing, he has to tell her, like, hey, we were intimate. And that's going to be a very difficult conversation for Helly.
Yeah. It is gonna be tough, and that's like because especially with what Helly says in Milkshake's office at the beginning of the episode, like, she specifically says, "She stole my body," And it's like, I felt so bad for her when she said that. It's just, all I could think was like, oh my God, you have no idea like what she did with your body. It's so fucked up. It was messed. It was not right. It was such a violation. And again, Mark needs to come clean because, and we talked about this in the Discord last night too. Like the longer this goes on, because it's not like this is a secret between Mark and Helena and nobody else knows. Just about everybody knows. Milchick knows, Mini Milkshake knows. I imagine Dylan probably even knows. It's not a secret. So if he does not come clean himself and she finds out from somebody else, that's going to destroy them even more. Like that is going to destroy them way more. And like you mentioned, in terms of any Mark responding in a way that Audi Mark would have, in terms of pushing those feelings away, not being able to confront his guilt, not being able to deal with his grief. I mean, he got severed because he couldn't deal with his grief ultimately. Anything to take the pain away for a few hours of the day. And I think we saw another really example of Audi Mark not being able to kind of deal with those kinds of emotions as well, with everything that he did with Gemma's belongings, like in the basement, in boxes,
I know.
her ashes. Like what?
You keep your dead wife in a box
my
in the
God.
basement. You are just cruel. He
So
is just
cool.
like, I like this episode. When I focus in on Mark as a person, who is he really as a person? I started to notice little things about just what an a-hole he is. Like he is just not nice. So he wanted to find Gemma. He asked Rohabi. I'm sorry, you guys.
I mess her
The
name up all
surgeon,
the time too. Yeah.
the surgeon,
The surgeon, yeah.
to help him, right? She's
Yeah.
living at his place because, right, she's going through the process of helping him, and then he's like, maybe you could try not living at my place. It's like, why are you being rude
I
to her? You
know.
need her. Like you're wanting to kick her out when you like needed her to do this for you. You were trying to sneak in messages by doing all of these
Yeah.
crazy things. Why are you being so mean, so rude? He's just, that is who he is as a person. And
Yeah.
what I loved is that he was being super rude. He was being mean, cold, condescending, super bad about the funeral, just like not a nice person. And what I
Yeah.
loved is that at the very end, Mr. Milkshake is like, enough. I'm going to put you in your place
Yes.
because somebody needs to tell you. And when he steps into the elevator in a very like scary manner, right? Like getting really close to him, says, did you tell Helly that you fucked her Audi at the art ball? I was like, and look at him. He's terrified in that picture. I was like, yes, finally, somebody spelled it out for him.
He was like, look at the look of fear in his eyes when Milkshake says that to him. You're totally right. This scared the shit out of him, and it should. I mean, because I feel like in this moment he's confronted with that guilt that he's trying to push away, that he's trying to push down. People compartmentalize things all the time, but it's not the healthiest choice. You ultimately you do want to deal with these feelings head on. It's the healthiest choice at the end of the day, especially when someone else is involved. And yeah, I feel like Milchick kind of, like you said, just handed it to him right in this scene. Like, okay, you want to duck this? No, you're not ducking this. I'm giving it right to you in your face, kind of thing. And yeah, you could see the look on Mark's face. He was petrified. And man, I can't get over Milchick. Again, I know he's still kind of a villain, but I do think he's going to have an epic redemption arc at some point. And he really is such a good actor, Avery Tillman, in the role. I love the way he delivers dialogue. It's the way he has this kind of sophisticated and kind of imposing figure. And he's got a really good screen presence. Some people just have a good commanding screen presence where they're on screen and you can kind of just feel their aura in a sense. They got like a good screen presence. He has that in like so much. And yeah, I don't know. I very much look forward to him having a redemption arc. I'm almost 90% sure at some point he's going to have a good redemption arc. I don't see him being loyal to Lumen this entire series. And I think we're already seeing the cracks of that between him and I always want to say Felicia but it's not Felicia.
Natalie.
Natalie, there it is. Thank you so much. I feel like we can already see those cracks forming a little bit with him and
Mm-hmm.
Natalie. Again, he goes to Natalie in this episode looking for that reassurance, looking for that common ally who is the only other person in the company that has shared this experience, that knows what he's feeling when he got that fucked up gift.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Milkshake just continues to impress me, but Mark's got to get with it. He's got to get
Oh
with it.
yeah.
He's got to get his head on straight. He's got to tell Helly the truth before she finds out from somebody else.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, I kind of want her to find out from somebody else because I don't
Right?
like
Me
Mark
too.
anymore. And I want her to completely cut him out of her life. Like, I just
Yeah,
don't like him anymore. But regarding Mr. Milkshake, phenomenal actor, phenomenal. The line delivery, the fact that like the chat is saying, he is imposing, he is
yeah,
intimidating, but he never does anything intimidating. He smiles, he's very warm, he never uses foul language, he's always like super kind, but you're still intimidated by his presence because he's such a
yeah,
phenomenal actor that he can um, convey that he is an authority figure, even though he is being super gentle and super nice. I think that it was deliberate that we never see him use language that is
yeah.
rude. He is always extremely professional, right? He uses big words. So he never behaves in such a manner. But specifically, this one time that we see him say or use language that is not appropriate for the workplace, it does
Right.
like put the fear of God in you because that is not him. Like he's always so polite. So I love the way that they took the romanticism out of what happened between Mark and Helly. It wasn't,
Yeah,
oh, you were intimate or oh, you slept together. He called it like it is to drill the point to Mark that this is what it was. You need to say something. I just love that scene.
I do. It is one of the best, if not the best scenes in the episode, just in terms of, concept, the writing, the delivery, the performances, and the impact and the profound impact that it does have on Mark in the scene, because it does seem like he's kind of just skating through the day, hoping to just sweep this under the rug. And you can't sweep something like this under the rug. You just can't. You're not going to be able to walk on that damn rug without tripping every fucking time. It's just too big. And in this moment, in this moment, Milchick just makes him confront it. No, you are confronting this. I am putting this into words. It's not something that you can hide from. And yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see how Mark responds. Like, will this little meeting here between him and Milkshake kind of scare him into doing the right thing, or at least get him to realize that he needs to do the right thing and come clean? Or will he continue down this path of just trying to avoid it, trying to hope that it goes away? But I don't know. It's going to get sticky. It's going to get very sticky for Mark
Yeah.
if he does not come clean. Even if he does come clean, like right now, it's still going to get sticky. And someone brought up in the chat earlier, is Mark potentially feeling guilty for not realizing that it
Mhm.
wasn't Helly? And I think maybe there's an aspect of that. I think that's definitely a possibility, because that's even the first thing Helly says is like, "You really couldn't tell it was me?" And Mark
Yeah.
so coldly, like, "No, I couldn't. I guess I don't really know you." What do you mean you don't really know her? She's been alive for like a week and you spend every day with her so far. What are you
Yeah.
talking about? You know her more than anybody. It was just, yeah, it wasn't Mark. It wasn't the any Mark that we have come to know and like, because he was a likable guy
Mhm.
up in, not in this episode, obviously. But yeah, I mean, maybe he is. Maybe he's feeling a little bit of guilt for realizing, oh, maybe I should have recognized that it's not her. But even if he is feeling that kind of guilt, it's no excuse for him not saying anything to Helly. I mean, he still needs
No.
to come clean. But
No.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And what's really heartbreaking is that Helly follows him into the hallway. He keeps trying to run away from her, really.
I
And she
know.
says to him, like, and just like, we talked about this, you and I, but Helly is not the type of person that is, soft spoken. She's a go-getter. She's confident. She's
Yeah,
strong. But this episode, she was like just running around, very soft spoken, very confused, going around like chasing Mark down. going into the bathroom just to have a conversation with him. And she keeps following him around and says, like, not everything is a lie here. We are like, this is real. And it's so heartbreaking because that's what she believes. She believes you are my one friend here. You are the one thing that is true, me and you, not knowing that Mark is lying, that that's not real anymore, that he
Yeah.
couldn't figure out that that wasn't her. And he should feel guilty, guys. He should feel, I feel guilty. He should feel as guilty as me because the flags were there that that was not Helly. And I couldn't tell either.
I know, yeah. I mean, it's it's so messed up, and yeah, and I do get Mark's going through some stuff too. Mark is also a victim in this, and to a certain extent, I see what you're saying, Nikki. Mark is dealing with a lot, reintegration, losing Irving, finding out Helly was Helena. To me, it makes sense he would withdraw. I can understand the withdrawal. I mean, I can understand, especially someone like any Mark who is, I mean, they're still children, essentially. They're not very well
Mhm.
versed in dealing with emotions like this. So I could totally understand him withdrawing, but he has to tell her what happened in the tent. Like that's like the
Mhm.
line. I feel like you can withdraw all you want. You can be guilty and you can grieve. You can go through your own grieving process alone if that's what you want to do. But when you have something like that hanging over you that involves the violation of not just you, but somebody else, he has to at least tell her that. And that's kind of was my problem
Yeah.
with Mark. I'm totally cool with him being withdrawn after what he went through. It was an ordeal for him too. He was also deceived. But now he's gone from the deceived to the deceiver by not telling Helly what
Mhm.
happened, the truth about what happened. So I'm totally cool with him being withdrawn, but he's got to tell her the truth about that tent and what they shared.
Yeah. Wow. From the deceived to the deceiver. Yes, indeed. Not only that, but you're allowed to have your feelings. You both have been
Yeah,
victimized. It's
yeah,
not a me or you, or, well, if I admit that you are the victim, I'm no longer a victim in this. It's we both have been victimized. And right now, what you need to know before anything is what happened to you. And then, like you stated, he could withdraw, he could deal with it on his own, but it's
yeah,
this like inability to confront. Being a good person is doing the right thing when it no longer feels good, when it doesn't
yes,
feel good to do the right thing. So
yeah,
that's when he could have proved, like, hey, I'm just going to tell you, it's going to be super weird. And I'm going to like not want to talk to you anymore, but this is what happened between you and I,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of my view on it as well. I do agree. It Everybody is allowed their feelings. Everybody is allowed their grieving process, their mourning process. It's people are allowed that. That's totally fine. If people want to grieve alone and withdraw, totally cool with that. But yeah, when someone else is involved in a dirty move like this, he's got to at least tell her that, and then he can go withdraw as much as he wants.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's just a messed up situation, and we talked about this a few times where Severance has gotten a lot darker. I mean, you look at
Oh,
season
yeah.
one of Severance. Season one wasn't dealing with anything this dark, anything this kind of like profound. I mean, it's stuff like this happens in the real world. Unfortunately, like this is definitely more akin to the real world that we live in, but it's gotten so darker in just the span of a few episodes. They've introduced so many kind of different tones, so many different themes, so many different subjects that
Mhm.
make this show a lot darker. It has that darker aspect to it. And I do remember people, early reviewers, stating that season two is twisted. People are calling it twisted, darker than season
Mhm.
one. I can totally understand what they were talking about now. I mean, yeah, it has gotten, the stakes have been upped. We hear the creator Dan Erickson state that season one was pretty much the Innie's portrayal of their childhood. Season one was about childhood and them being born and learning about the world. And he describes season two as them more of growing into adolescence. So,
Mhm.
and you can see that, but it almost sometimes it feels like they skipped adolescence and went right to freaking adulthood with some of this dark
Yeah.
shit we're seeing. But yeah, the tone has changed a little bit on Severance. It's not that same kind of innocent show it was in season one, and I don't have a problem with that. I don't mind diving into some more serious and deeper topics and stuff like this.
Mhm.
Again, this is the stuff you do see in the real world, unfortunately. But yeah, Severance has changed. I totally understand when people are saying, "Oh, episode 4 and 5 are going to change Severance forever." It's like, shit, they
Mhm.
kind of did. It did change the show a bit.
You told us. You told us when you did the preview, and I was like, how can it really change? I mean, that
Right.
much,
Yeah.
that
How
much.
can it
But all of
change?
the sudden, it did. And it took me by surprise, even though I knew, because this was the nicest love story we had. I mean, it was Irving and Bert, right? But they ruined that for us.
Mhm.
And then it was,
Yeah.
Helly and Mark. It was super sweet the way they would just stare at each other, not knowing what to do. Like, children when they have a crush. It was very sweet, very innocent, and then they took
Yeah.
like a plunge just down to hell. And they made it super dark. And now we're talking about consent. And now it has
Right.
become the darkest relationship in the office.
Yeah.
So I definitely could see that. And when you bring up the trajectory of a human being becoming, right? Because when you're a child and you grow up, you are becoming a person. You
Mhm.
do tend to see things that we're seeing in Severance, like Helly. There are people who begin life very confident, very like
Yeah.
strong, very independent, and like self assured. But things happen through their lifetime that then
Yeah.
make them insecure, turn them into the
Mhm.
opposite of who they were because of different situations or traumas that they go through. And we're seeing a
Mhm.
Helly that is a little bit like confused, withdrawn. She's not as secure as she used to be.
Yeah.
And a Mark that is completely different than he was season one, childhood. He's no
Yeah.
longer bright eyed. Now he's cynical, sarcastic, mean. So I definitely could see what you're saying and what they did. I mean, it's once you point it out, it's very obvious. Yeah.
Yeah, once you start to see it, and it's one of those things that you start to see it, and then you can't kind of unsee it. Then you start seeing it in multiple other aspects and facets of the show. It's it's woven into the fabric of the show now, essentially,
Hmm.
and it has changed. Um, this was good too, though. I mean, we did have a good laugh about this. Miss Wong reporting him for frivolously twice before the Irving incident shows her ambition for Milkshake's
Hmm.
position. That was so funny. Like when he's at the performance review and we find out he's been reported for not only um not only talking in words that are too big because she's a child and she doesn't understand how the shit he's saying, but she also reports him for incorrect use of paper clips of all things. Like, oh my god, what is going on? This I don't know why this made me laugh my ass off when I saw him looking at this report. Uses too many big words. Incorrect use of paper clips. 2 points of contention with Mr. Milchick as a boss. That was
Yeah.
hilarious to me. And yeah, like you said, maybe it does show Mini Milkshake's ambition. Maybe she does want the job for herself. Maybe she's a little more devious than we thought. Maybe she isn't just the innocent, second in command. And I think we also got a little hint of that as well. And you and I also discussed this
Hmm.
when Minnie Milkshake always did kind of seem like yeah, she seemed like she was kind of doesn't have not very well versed in human emotion. She does kind of come have a little bit of a Miss Casey vibe to her almost in terms of not
Yeah.
knowing the kind of social cues and stuff like that. But in this scene, it was like totally different. It felt like I was watching an adult deliver this line when she says, "You shouldn't let them have a funeral. It makes them feel like people." I'm like, oh shit! Like,
Mhm.
tell us how you really feel, Minnie Milkshake. My
And
God.
her sweet little voice too, with her pigtails and the sweetest little voice. You shouldn't let them have a funeral. It makes them feel like people. But also, what I love is the devious nature, the um revenge that she's getting on Milkshake, and she knows that she's about to get revenge, and she mentions it like, I know something you don't know. When he says that's not a question, that's a statement, and she's like, is your evaluation today? That's a question. Because she knew I reported you. You're about to get in so much trouble over
Oh
your
my
big words.
God. Oh my God. Yeah, she totally kind of set him up, right? She totally kind of just set him up to walk right into that. Like, hey, let me, hey, your performance reviews today, isn't it? Oh yeah, I know it's today because I told them about the paper clips, Milchick. They know. They know about the big
Like,
words.
that's a question. Oh, and when in the funeral, super cute. She's like she only does one note of her instrument.
Oh yeah,
And
the
he's like, let's
theremin.
go. Yeah. And she said, you said I was gonna perform? And she gets so mad about it. Like, you said I
Yep, you
would
said I was gonna
perform.
perform. Yeah, and she does. She looks so disappointed. I mean, she's walking behind him in the hallway, and this did kind of come off a little bit more like a father-daughter scene, like, almost. No, like
Hmm.
it had a little bit
Yeah.
of a different vibe than coworker, than boss and subordinate. It kind of had more of a father-daughter feel where, you said I was going to play for you, and he says, oh, you can prepare your piece for me later. It's like total dad thing for him to say. I
Yeah.
felt like it just felt super father-daughter, just completely different
Yeah.
dynamic than what they usually have.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you have named her Mini Milkshake because it is like this dynamic that it's super cool to see Mr. Milkshake because we usually see him with the innies, right? And that's a different relationship. But I love this picture. She's like, what? But Milkshake and Mini Milkshake, they have definitely a way better and more fun interaction than
Yeah.
Milkshake did with Cobell. I love them two working together because you do get a different vibe. It's not as mean. It's kind of like a give and take because now we see Mini Milkshake plotting against them. It's super cute.
It was kind of funny. It was kind of cute. It's and yeah, it was just a different dynamic from what they usually have. It's kind of very professional, very kind of stern boss subordinate kind of relationship. Um, but yeah, this whole episode, like almost every interaction they have was just so different. Whether it's them in the 3D printing thing, making the mugs and making the watermelon, and she's kind of, oh, you got your performance review today, don't you? I know what you're gonna find. To this father daughter like scene where he's kind of just dismissing her. Oh, it's all right. You can play your instrument for me later, child. It just felt like
Hmm.
so different between them. Um,
Hmm.
so I wonder if that's going to become a thing. Like, I wonder if we are going to start seeing a more of a thing between Milkshake and Mini Milkshake, where they do start maybe butting
Hmm.
heads a little bit more. Maybe they do start kind of, who knows? Like as someone said in the chat, maybe she is gunning for his job. Who knows how she got this job in the first place?
Yeah,
Second in command on a severed floor for a company like Lumen. Like, how would you ever trust a child to do a job like this? So how she even got there in the first place still is mind-boggling. But yeah, I
exactly.
wonder if this is going to be a thing between them.
I would love that because that would bring in some innocence and some much needed fun to the show, which their scenes made me laugh. They were nice and sweet and just fun because we are kind of dealing with such dark topics now, right? I
Yeah.
did notice the change in hairstyle. And when I noticed
Yes.
her hairstyle, she used to kind of blend in. She is a child at the office. However, her hair and her demeanor, you kind of got used to seeing her, or at least
Yeah.
I did. I got used to seeing her and kind of accepted that this is a child at the office, but it's not as striking. But then they do the
Yeah.
pigtails. And as soon as they do the pigtails,
Yes.
it's even more striking the contrast of wait, this is a little girl at the office. She shouldn't be here. She shouldn't be working here. Right. And um the change of hairstyle I thought was excellent because it does kind of strike you as there's something wrong. Maybe I got too used to seeing Mini Milkshake at the office. Um, and I love Helly's remark. As soon as the elevator door opens, like, who are you? This little girl sitting there with the pigtails.
Yeah. Yeah. Who the hell are you? Yeah. I mean, this is the first time she's been back on the severed floor. She has no idea what she's walking back into, and yeah, the first thing she sees is this crazy, weird painting behind them,
Mhm,
and yeah, her. Hello, welcome to work. I'm your new
mhm,
boss. Like, what the fuck? Like, what kind of Twilight Zone did I just
mhm.
step into? What episode is this? Where's Rod Serling? Come on, I know he's here somewhere. Yeah, it's I can only imagine when she's walking back into finally getting back on the severed floor and seeing everything so different. And like you said earlier, like Helly is or was always one of those characters that she was always came across as strong, as sure of herself. She projected that strength and that confidence. And right from the time she lands on the severed floor, just look at the look on her face. She just looks so defeated now after everything that happened. This has changed her. I think it's not just changed
Mhm.
Mark, but it's changed Helly a little bit. I imagine this has been a blow to her confidence a little bit, to her self-esteem. Not knowing what this person did with my body for so many days. It's not like it was just, oh, I'm going to pretend to be you for a day. She was doing this for an extended period of time.
Mhm.
Yeah, I imagine everything that's going through Helly's head. Like, what did she do? What did she do with my body? What did she do with my identity? And it seems like it has shaken her confidence in terms of that normal kind of, you know, confident, strong Helly that we usually see.
Oh yeah. You see the difference. She's such a great actress because
Yeah,
the difference is subtle. It's the way that she looks at Mark is it's not overacting, but you notice that she is a different person, that the confidence isn't there. I know your chat was mentioning the way that she walks with purpose. Helly does
yeah,
walk with purpose. And in this episode, she's just kind of following somebody around. You could see that she's completely lost. And somebody the chat knows all. First of all, your chat knows
yeah,
everything. We should just ask them everything because they told
absolutely.
us or they told me, um, this is not Helly because Helly is so confident that if she wanted to kiss Mark, she would have just kissed him.
Yes.
They knew it.
Yes.
They spotted it. I don't remember who you are, but you spotted it and you were right on point. She is confident. She would have just kissed him. We should have noticed, like Mark, that this was Helena.
Yeah. And like you said, I mean, the chat nailed it. A few of you guys picked up on it right away. The elevator ding was kind of like the first thing that started putting people on the path of, okay, something's a little bit different here. How come she didn't get the elevator ding when everybody else did? Knowing that it's an indication of swapping forth. Like now that we know, going back, I imagine the signs are going to be so much more obvious. I mean, it's hindsight's always 2020, of course, but yeah, the chat. A lot of you saw it super early on that this was not Helly, that something was different, and I think that is probably the biggest tip off of it not being Helly. The elevator was an interesting indication, but like you just mentioned, her not kissing Mark in the hallway, episode two, see, at the beginning of the season, episode two, when she finally gets back and they all get back on the severed floor and they have to just the most awkward interaction, just staring at each other. They don't quite know how to deal with these human emotions yet, these feelings. But yeah, Helly's hesitancy in that scene, that she didn't just kind of grab him and plant one on him, it should have been a bigger telltale sign to everybody that this is not Helly. This is
Mhm.
Helena. Because yeah, Helly's not going to wait. She's not going to sit around and wait for Mark to make the move. She's going to grab him and do it herself. And she didn't
Yeah.
there. She was kind of just sitting there waiting for him to do it. So I think that just looking back, that was probably the biggest telltale sign that this was not Helly. And yeah, a lot of you in the chat got it right.
Oh, for
Chat
sure.
knows all, as you
Chat
say.
knows all, you guys. But to that
Mm,
point, when we saw Elena do this, it was very out of character because I think of Elena as a Machiavellian, super strong person. This
yeah,
episode was very interesting and it developed her character in a very like profound way because all of a sudden we realized that she doesn't have as much power as maybe we thought. She's
yeah,
sitting there and the board is telling her what she's gonna do with her body. The
yeah,
board is telling her what risks they're willing to take with her body. So in a way, yes, she stole Hallie's body. However, she doesn't even have complete authority over her own body in her real life. And what struck me as really strange is that she is the person in waiting to lead the company next. However, Natalie seems to have more authority. Natalie's sitting at the head at the table with the board member, and Natalie's
yeah,
making comments of this is not going to be you, it's going to be your innie. Like she is talking to her in a way that it's like I just thought
yeah.
Natalie was the secretary. All of a sudden Natalie has more authority than I believed, even more authority over Elena herself.
She does a bit. Like, no, I think that's actually a really good point. I mean, because I kind of always looked at Natalie in that way as well, where she was just kind of like, an intermediary between the board. Like, obviously, the board never talks to anybody directly. We never see the board. We have no idea what the board is even comprised of yet. If it's people, I know a lot of people think it might be some AI. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, since the board is so mysterious and they do this whole Wizard of Oz thing from behind the curtain, I kind of always just assume that, yeah, that's pretty much the only role she's going to fill. She's the intermediary between the board and who the board wants to talk to. But no, like you said, in this scene, she did come off as someone who has a little bit more power than that, a little bit more sway, where she's even telling Helena, it's like, "Oh, don't worry, he's 85% complete. He's almost done." Like, like, yeah, that's not something a secretary says. She did kind of come off like she had a little bit more authority, and Drummond as well. I mean, he kind of always seemed like he had a lot of power. But I saw some people saying in the chat, asking if Helena and Drummond are brother and sister. Just by the way, just the way Drummond says, or Helena says, "Father agreed to this," and he says back to her, "Father encouraged it." Both of them calling, James father. I don't know if that's literal. I don't think they're literally brother and sister. I kind of just took that like, oh, he's the father. We know how this company is, Lumen. They do kind of
Yeah.
have this, this kind of worshipness for the CEO. Whoever the CEO is at the time is deified in a sense. We see all of their memorials, all of their wax statues, the perpetuity wing. Being a CEO of Lumen makes you a deity-like figure. So both of them calling him father, I kind of just chalked up to that. But that's an interesting idea, though, that they could potentially be brother and sister. I think that's also an interesting theory. But I don't know. I don't know. I kind of took it as just father, the father of Lumen, James freaking Egan.
Yeah.
But who knows?
Yeah, I could see both. I definitely for sure because this is a corporate cult. He is a god, right? So I can definitely see them calling him father as they tend to do. And with the stories that we saw at the Orville, are the stories of cult leaders. The story of I went out into the woods and I found and encountered like three entities or four entities in this case. I tamed the tempers, right? It is all of this religious stuff that has been injected into the corporate world. So I could see
Yeah.
why they would just say father as in
Yeah.
like a spiritual leader. But I could see the resemblance. They would fit as a brother and sister. They kind of have, the same sort of look about them. Um, yeah, they look alike. Yeah. Oh, with Ricken? Okay, so Sachi says that Ricken and Drummond
Oh,
look
Ricken
alike.
and Drummond. Ooh,
Ricken.
interesting. Hmm. Let's see. I think I got a better close-up one of Drummond when
Well, I
he
will say
is.
this, Sashi. In Ricken's book, he does make a point to mention that there was a period of time where his writing wasn't working out and he needed to join the workplace as one of the worker bees that he hopes or he thought he was helping. Who
Ooh.
are the bees? The innies. So when I noticed that he mentioned that, I thought, did he potentially start working for Lumen during that time? A
Interesting.
lot of people
Interesting.
think that Rickon is like a double agent of
Yeah,
some
I
sorts.
know. I love those. I love those theories. I think they're some of the funnest fan theories to read and to hear about. But yeah, you see all these crazy theories of Rickon secretly being, the orchestrator of all of this stuff. He's Kier reborn. Like I've seen so many crazy theories around Rickon. um, they make me laugh every time. But who knows? I mean, is Rickon, is he more than meets the eye? Who knows? I don't know. Maybe there's a little bit more to Rickon than just you know part-time co-leader. I don't know.
Part-time co-leader. Yeah, I love that. he is he is running his own little cult with the obsessive, and I love Rebecca. I really do like his followers. I think that they are
Yeah,
so fun and he really brings fun into the show. So I hope that they
yeah.
don't corrupt that storyline because as we
I
mentioned
know.
before, everything has become so corrupted, right? I feel like it all started with the paintings when the episode came along and they presented the paintings to Mr. Milkshake, I just thought to myself, oh my God, is Severance tackling racism? And then it got
Yeah.
darker, consent, and then it got darker and darker.
Hmm.
Slavery. So the themes are getting heavy. And for me, it started with the paintings.
It did. Yeah, you're right. The painting was the first. It was the first step in taking the show into a more serious tone, into a more darker reality. Severance diving into the very real topic of racism. Unfortunately, that was the first one because yeah, I believe that happens first before any of the other stuff, and then yeah, you have episode 4, which kind of gets it even kind of darker with Mark and Helly and the question of consent among severed individuals and who ultimately has consent to use that body, considering you're literally sharing your body with somebody else. The consent thing was right there, super in your face. So yeah, they have progressively, slowly started to get a little bit darker, a little bit more, diving into some of these uncomfortable topics sometimes.
Hmm. What I thought was interesting, like in this review, we have the picture up of the review. Um, so he's getting reprimanded for using big words, and I understand that because he's getting reprimanded for using them with his workers. However,
Yep.
this reprimand comes from the man who uses the word contretemps, a French word for contratiempo. So they are using these words back to him, but they're reprimanding him for having used them with the workers. And it
Yes.
really shows you that when they mention you accepted the gift of the paintings with grace. So it kind of lets you know we know what is going on. We know what we did. Was it potentially a test? Because why would you say you accepted the gift with grace?
Mm,
It makes
yes.
no sense. And
Yep.
I do feel for Mr. Milkshake because he has asked twice now for Natalie to become an ally. He
Yeah.
asked her specifically, I was wondering if you could share the complicated feelings that arise from the gift. And she just says, oh, the board is waiting. She has refused twice to become an ally to let him know that there is a safe person in the company. And
Yes.
at this, I really feel for him. Having had the experience as a person that is a minority in a world that is ran by a different sort of majority, sometimes you do
Hmm.
look for understanding. However,
Yeah.
Natalie has a high up their position, and you don't get to that position by providing understanding and becoming an ally to everyone underneath you. So it really
Yeah.
shows you her strategy.
It does. I mean, because you can kind of see those moments in her eyes. No, like I tried to grab a few screenshots where you kind of like really see the real Natalie just for like a split second when she drops the fake smile and she does try to give Milchick that kind of look like I get it, I fucking get it. It's fucked
Hmm.
up. But yeah, like at the end of the day, she pushes it aside and she knows, like you said, she didn't get to this position you know, by not being able to just throw on that smile and get through the day, no matter what kind of fucked up shit she's seeing around her.
Hmm.
She is probably well adept at it by now. After a company like Lumen, her becoming so high up in a company like Lumen, I can only imagine the shit she has seen and even had to do to get there, to get to her position.
Hmm.
And yeah, I mean, you see Milchick just kind of coming up to her like he's reaching out so much here. Like he really is. He's doing everything he can to reach out in a way that isn't noticeable to Lumen because they are always watching at the end of the day. So he does play it kind of cool, but you can instantly tell like he's looking for an ally here. Like you said, he's looking for
Hmm.
somebody who has shared his experience, that knows what he's feeling. And she does. She has, according to her, she has been given the exact same gift, the gift of seeing yourself inside Kier. So she knows she's felt the same thing he's feeling, and he's trying to reach out to her to see, is this person going to be an ally? Is this a
Yes.
person that I can share this experience with, who has had a similar experience being at this company for, it seems like they've both been there for a very long time, I would imagine. And
Hmm.
you can tell Natalie wants to do that. Like he's handing out this olive branch. You can tell Natalie wants to grab it like she does. I feel like she does want to grab it. I feel like she does want to connect with him on that level. but she doesn't. She knows Lumen is always watching. So we see a few moments where she drops that kind of fake smile and gives him like very honest eyes here in this scene right here, like just looking at him very honestly, like, I get it, I fucking get it. But she can't let herself, fall victim to those emotions. She kind of has to push it down, compartmentalize, and get through it, which I imagine they both have to. But I do want to see this develop a little bit more, and I do think it will. I get the feeling we're going to see a lot more Milchick and Natalie. And I think we will get to a point where Natalie does start to maybe bring those walls down a little bit more, and maybe does start to let Milchick in a little bit more, because they're really the only two who know what they're going through.
That would be great if they actually become allies and maybe bring the company
Yeah,
down. I would love that. My
that would be good.
prediction is that it could go the other way too. He's asked
Maybe, yeah.
twice. So this is twice already that he has said, "Are you with me? I think you and I, like, we know what's going on. Are you with me?" And she's denied any
She
sort of
denies him.
understanding.
Ah,
So to me, I
ah,
think he might ask for a third time. And when he's gonna ask for that third time, it's not gonna be as kind and as reserved. It's gonna be
mhm.
confronting. Like, I have asked you,
Ooh,
you knew that this was wrong, and like,
yeah,
why don't you want to be an ally? Why don't you want to talk about it? So I think that
yeah,
that third time is gonna be him finally confronting his true feelings for the company, because you do see him when he has the review saying, "Well, I don't need to order lunch. Hopefully, it's not gonna go on that long." And he finds out, oh no, the majority of the review we're going to be talking about the mistakes that you made at the Orbo.
ugh,
So
yeah,
all of the sudden, he is confronted with the fact that he puts in all of this work for the company. He has a very difficult job. He tried instituting kindness reforms so that he could treat them humanely, and it's not enough. It's never enough. So I think he might just, next episode, maybe he'll get sick of Lumen.
I think this could be the crack. Yeah, I think this could be the seed of doubt that will eventually grow into more, grow into those feelings becoming too overwhelming and too strong to the point where you can't continue to put your head down. You can't continue to bury your head in the sand, essentially. Milchick knows the kind of company he's working for. I think he's really finally starting to see the full gravity of the company that he's working for. And I don't, yeah, I don't think he's going to be cool with it forever. I do think he will come to a point in time where he is going to realize, maybe this isn't for me. This isn't the side I'm supposed to be on. This isn't the right side of history. And yeah, I like that idea too, as like you mentioned, with him kind of maybe going up to Natalie one final time. And if she does kind of, be unreceptive as she has, I mean, you can tell she wants to be receptive, but she's really not. One more time getting rejected for a third time in a row, that could be another kind of straw that breaks the camel's back, that does eventually kind of lead Milchick down that path of redemption, of turning on Lumen. I'd love to see them do it together, but I could totally see it just being him maybe too as well. So that's a good point you bring up. Yeah, I want to see where Milchick goes. I want to see
Oh,
where
for
his story
sure.
goes.
And I
Yeah.
love that they're not dropping the paintings. I love that it is a storyline that is continuing, that they didn't just put it there and had it for an episode, had the conversation, but now it's continuing. He's bringing it up again. And
Yeah.
I like the fact that they're emphasizing what happens to somebody who is a minority in a world dominated by the majority. And the fact that when you do your job well, you don't see yourself as different. You just see yourself as, I'm an awesome manager. I'm so great at this, until they
Yeah.
point out you're different. And that's what they did to him. They pointed their finger at him and said, "You are a great manager and you're also different. You don't match who we are. But here we made you a painting so that you could feel part of." And
Yeah.
until that moment, I don't think that he felt different.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. I 100% agree. It's, yeah, I mean, and the nuance to the show, the way that they write these scenes with, it seems like they're writing these scenes as careful and as respectful as they can. They want to, talking about these situations it's not always comfortable for people, but I feel like they're bringing it across into Severance the best way they can. Yes, the show has definitely got a little bit darker. The tone has really matured in many different ways, But the way they're playing it has been very interesting to see, and maybe that's the actors and the actresses and their performances and how they deliver these kinds of scenes, which I do think is also a huge factor. They have a fucking really good cast, like such a good cast here, and really good writing. Yeah, I want to see where this goes. I want to see how far is this going to go. When is Milchick going to reach that point of no return, that rock bottom feeling where he does start to question a little bit more? And yeah, as Lily says as well, they don't want the innies to feel like people. So Lumen does not care about all the kindness reforms. And that always struck me as weird too. It's like, that's what I'm saying. We hear all this kindness reforms, all of these severed reforms at the beginning of the season. And yeah, it just does not seem like that is anything that Lumen would ever care about. They want, you would think anyway, that they would want their employees to experience as little of life as possible. They don't want them to long and yearn for a life that they can't have. That's why there's no windows in the office. That's why they usually don't show them the outside world. The whole Orpo in itself, the whole outdoor experience, all of it, just the very concept of it goes against the very principles of what Lumen wants in an employee. They want an employee that is loyal, obedient, that doesn't question, that doesn't yearn for a life outside of the office. So to show them the outside world does kind of go directly against everything they kind of stand for. Yeah. And yeah, oh my God, can we gush about the micro expressions on the show? Again, the performances from these actors and actresses are phenomenal. They can convey so much with just the slightest little look. And I do think Natalie, the actress who plays Natalie, I think she's actually really great at this in this particular thing where she has that really big, bright, radiant smile, but she can drop it in a split second and kind of completely just, you see the realness come through. But yeah, they really lucked out getting a cast like this. Really lucked out. I wonder if Natalie also thought it might be a trap too. Oh, interesting. She might not have trusted Milchick to be truthful with him. Now that's an interesting idea for ever thought, Autumn. That maybe that's why she's not as receptive as she maybe would want to be, because she's maybe afraid that this could be a trap. I mean, I didn't consider that, but I suppose that's an interesting possibility. I mean, who knows where her mindset is at? Being Natalie, we still don't know a whole lot about Natalie and how she thinks, what makes her tick, what are her motivations as a character. Once you know a character's motivations and you know who a character is, it becomes a lot easier to anticipate what they will do given any situation. But until you know a character's true motivations, it's really hard to know what they're thinking, what they're feeling. But yeah, who knows anything, all the stuff that Natalie has been through at her time at Lumen. Could she have gotten to a point where she's just so distrusting of everybody that she's not even risking letting Milchick in?
That's really interesting, Forever Autumn, and it makes me think of something else. What about if it's not a trap by the employees, but by the company? Kier has all of these weird, like little sayings about breaking down people. And when you want to control someone, first you have to break them down to make them obedient, and you have to break their identity, right? So what about if it was a trap by the company? Like, we're going to give you something specifically offensive. You handled it with grace. You are part of us because you're willing to give some of yourself up, to not make a big deal. You're willing to have grace. You care more about the company than you do about some of your values. So why say grace? Maybe it was a trap to see, like, how problematic are you? Are you willing to be problematic, or are you willing to play with us and to just follow the rules?
Yeah, that I could definitely see that actually. Yeah, like it seems like Lumen is definitely the kind of company that would want to test and lay these kinds of tests and traps for their employees, especially the higher up employees that are in charge of some really important stuff, like Milchick being the head of the severed floor. That's an employee that Lumen is invested in. So yeah, maybe and even Natalie, she's high up too. Maybe some of these things are deliberately put there by the company to test loyalty in a sense. Let's give Milchick this painting and let's see how he reacts. Let's see if he will accept it with grace, as they say. Yeah, it could just be a test. It could just be Lumen setting this whole thing up to see what kind of employee are you really? Is there a line that you won't cross for the company, or is there something that you won't just swallow for the company's sake? And so yeah, I can totally see that being a possibility where yeah, it's one giant test from Lumen, one giant kind of purity test in a sense, which is sick, but
Compliance,
definitely possible.
compliance. And it goes back to what
Yeah.
Kier says, right? The mouth that is busy smiling, and these two characters are known for their smile. They're always smiling. The mouth that is
Yeah.
busy smiling cannot bite.
Yes. So it's so profound too. Like that's the perfect line for a severed employee, and that seems to be the perfect motto for what Lumen wants their employees to be. A mouth that is smiling cannot bite. You can't bite the hand that feeds you at that point, and that is ultimately what Lumen wants, and that's I imagine that's how they see themselves as well. It's yeah, it's obedient. It's a loyalty thing at the end of the day. It's why they don't want their innies or their severed employees, yearning for an outside life. It's why they have the severed program in the first place. They want these people to come to the workplace, focus on their work, leave, and think of nothing else. The endless toil of the MDR work, of the optics and design work, of the goat work, whatever the heck's going on with the goats. Yeah, it could just be that. It could very well be that. It's we know they don't want them yearning for anything more,
Well, what
for
you
sure.
mentioned, right? That's a good point because we actually we get direct messages in this episode regarding the point that you just made. When Ricken sells out and he changes the particular quote about the clock, he changes it to
Yes.
mean the opposite of about this is what we want from you. We want you to be satisfied in the fact that you get to sit here and work for us. Be satisfied in the fact that you just exist here, that you get to
Yeah.
do the work that I need you to do. Let that be enough. And opposite to this, his book originally said, while your employer owns the clock, you own the time. He
Yes.
changes it to own the joy of hearing the tick. So just take
Yeah.
joy in the fact that you get to work.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, even some of this wording is just it's like you said, and the clock ticking, your sovereign boss. Like just that line alone, your sovereign boss, not your boss, your sovereign boss may own the clock that greets you from, you get to enjoy its ticking and thus should be happy. This is how they want their employees to be. And that's ultimately what this book is for. I mean, if they're writing this book specifically for innies, then yeah, they're going to have Ricken kind of tweak it here and there to project this kind of message while observing the synchronicity of my future team. It's all about the team. It's all about the job. It's all about you should enjoy hearing the clocks ticking. You should enjoy having the privilege of working for this company kind of vibe. And that's kind of what we see here. Yeah.
The
And you can tell
opposite. And
Mark's.
mhm.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say Mark's sister doesn't like it, but sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, same thing. I was gonna say the same. A lot of the chat was wondering last time, why are they together? Why are they a couple? They don't
Yes.
see them fitting together. And in
Yeah.
this episode, I think I saw why they're a couple. She is upset at the changes that he has made because that's not
Yeah.
his intellectual property as it was, right? So
And that's not
the
who he
fact that
is.
yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
the fact that she's offended and upset about it tells me that maybe that's why they are together. Because even though she's cynical like her brother, she kind of maybe found it endearing that he believed in all of these things, right? That he was hopeful and like strange. And now he's selling out. That's true. He's definitely selling out.
He is. He's selling out. And I think that does make sense because we have wondered. Even I've wondered, like, yeah, how did these two become a couple? They seem polar opposites, not just polar opposites, opposites to attract every once in a while. but they just don't seem compatible, I guess. They seem like two totally different people that would have two totally different goals usually in life. But maybe, you know, when they come together, they are that team. Maybe this is that person that Rickon needs that kind of keeps his work honest and keeps it like, no, this isn't you. This is not something you would normally write, kind of thing. And here we have Rickon trying to kind of be compliant to the company. And maybe that was Natalie's influence. Maybe that was the discussion she had with him had a profound impact on him where he does feel this need to want to get this right. Maybe he feels like this is his big opportunity kind of thing. So he's willing to compromise his beliefs for success. But yeah, maybe that does give us a little bit of a better insight as to why they are together, essentially. Because she was not liking it. She was
No.
not liking it. Man. Yeah, let's see what you guys are saying in the chat. You guys are saying some awesome stuff. And yeah, maybe she was trying to teach him how to respond. She acknowledged that she acknowledged and led by example. That's a possibility as well. I mean, maybe she is trying to get through to Milchick that you shouldn't even be asking these questions. This is how you should respond to this kind of thing if you want to stay at the company and advance at the company. Obviously, there's a price you have to pay to be at this company, and maybe she was trying to teach him that. So no, I think that's an interesting idea as well, for sure. For sure. Natalie's the kind of Natalie is kind of in a stranger position than Milchick because she is half white and half black, and sometimes biracial people feel like they don't totally fit with either side. Okay, I could see that potentially being a possibility where maybe, you know, she feels this slight connection to Milchick, but maybe doesn't feel like she can fully trust him because of that difference. Maybe I don't know. I don't know. But I mean, if they gave her the same gift, I have to imagine they've had similar experiences in this company, kind of coming up through the ranks of this company. And I think Milchick is just recognizing that in her and trying to make that connection. But yeah, she's not, you know, she's not just super receptive to it. Maybe she, like Lily said, maybe she is just trying to teach him how to respond in these kind of moments, or maybe it is a trust issue. Maybe she just doesn't fully trust him to show that side of her fully. Gives him a little glance every once in now and again to let him know, like, I understand it's fucked up, but she's not going to fully trust him and kind of bring those walls down. Maybe that's definitely a possibility. And yeah, dude, Ricken is a sellout.
I know, I'm so disappointed in him. I really
I
am.
was going to ask you
Because,
about that. That
yeah,
is what I wanted to ask you because I know you are a Ricken fan. I am too
yeah.
as well. Yeah. How did you feel about that? About Ricken selling out and willing to compromise his values? Like, do you see this becoming a problem for his character going forward?
Man, he's destroying the cult. He's destroying our UUR cult. I don't like it. I was very disappointed in Rickon. I was because I mean, he mentioned specifically, I will take your opinion into consideration. However, and he mentions the money. And he
Yeah.
mentions the fact that this is the most lucrative opportunity that he has. And so it disappointed me in the way that he is willing to sell out his ideas to the point where he makes them the opposite about of the cult. Like that's not the cult that we started, Rickon. That's not the cult I joined. And now it's a whole different thing, you know? So yeah, but I'm also interested in seeing him in the office. I really want him to be like a special speaker. Sometimes they have
Ooh.
these like little seminars where they will bring people in, right? If you worked in
Mhm.
corporate, you know. So I want to see Rickon at the severed floor with the innies. I think that would be fun.
Ooh, okay. Especially considering the relationship that the innies have with Rickon, the way that the innies have kind of deified Rickon in a sense. They found his book, and Rickon's book taught the innies so much about life, so much stuff that they would never had a chance to learn because they never would have experienced the
Mhm.
outside world. So I think that could be such an interesting scene. You're totally right. If they could bring Rickon in as a guest speaker after the book is done to, you know, a guest reading for all of the innies that are going to go on and read this book, because yeah, they've already kind of deified him in so many different ways where they look up to him. And we saw the reaction Innie Mark had to seeing him in the real world for the first time and learning it's his
Aw.
brother-in-law. He was so proud, he was so happy.
Oh.
And
Oh, but
and
that's a great point. That's
mm,
totally a great point. They're going to be so disappointed in him because you're right. They did remember like everything he said, right? I totally forgot about that. So when he
Yeah.
starts switching everything on them, they're gonna be like, wait, this is not what we learned.
Oh my God, yes, you're totally right. I mean, it's yes, they've seen the original version of the book. They've read the original version of the book, and they hold the book in such high esteem. It was the one piece of contraband that they were doing everything they could to hide from Lumen, taking turns in the bathroom, reading it in the bathroom stall. Like this book was everything to them. And they did. They started to look up to Ricken as the author of this book. This person has taught them so much. So yes, that's such a good point. If he does kind of start compromising what he really feels, what he really believes, in order to make this Lumen tailor-made version of his book, and he's read that, yeah, they might be disappointed. They might be, this is not the person I remember. This is not the person. This is not the you are you person that taught me so much about the world. This is a totally different tone, a totally different feel. So I could totally see that being a case where, yeah, maybe they start to be disappointed in this new version of the book because it's watered down. Yeah, absolutely. Wow.
That's not the cult that we joined. We joined
It's
a
not.
totally different cult.
Yeah, that is not our Ricken cult, unfortunately. Like we joined the real deal Ricken cult, the real you are you, not the any you are you. Come on, Ricken. Come on. And yeah, Ricken said bills are high though, and it does seem like financial, his finances are a motivation for this. Yes, but I mean, the second you start compromising your values for money, that's a slippery slope right there. And you would think that someone like Ricken, because he does seem to be very new age, he does seem to kind of believe in what he says. You would think that wouldn't even be an option for him. But then again, he has a family to take care of, a newborn baby. So maybe he's willing to compromise a little bit to achieve the end of being able to support. So it's I mean, Ricken's, it's a tough line to walk, I would imagine, for him, but that'll be interesting to see. As he continues to write this book, will he eventually come to a point where he says, enough is enough, I'm not going to compromise who I am for a paycheck? Or will he continue to go through with it? And if he does, could that put a strain on his marriage? Because I imagine this is probably something his wife doesn't like, seeing him compromising himself for that, like this. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Will Ricken kind of follow through on this, or will he get to a point where he realizes this isn't who I am, I'm not doing this? I don't know.
Great
I don't
question.
know. Take my freaking Kool-Aid. All the Ricken Kool-Aid. All the Ricken Kool-Aid. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Lumen pays big bucks for Severed Procedure. Now they are offering money for their version of his book. Thrown enough money about people, and they often, and too often, they comply. They do. I mean, money will make people do some very strange things. Money will, there's nothing that will make you compromise your morals faster than money. I feel like that is probably what will make people fold the quickest. You offer someone a big payday enough times, especially somebody who's in a position like Ricken, where he does have a brand new family. Yeah, someone like this is a little more open to that kind of manipulation. That kind of financial manipulation is really what it is at the end of the day. So yeah, that's a good point. Offer enough money, eventually they will compromise. Will compromise themselves. I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah, do
and
they
I
have money
feel for his
problems?
wife, right? Because you
Right.
don't
Yeah.
marry somebody as strange and particular as Ricken. You don't marry that man for him to then become just a company man. You marry
Yeah.
him because he's strange. It stands out. You can't avoid it, right? So you don't marry him for him to just become like everybody else.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, someone like Ricken, like you mentioned, who he is as a person, he's different. He's different. He's not like your average everyday person. He's different. He's a little eccentric. He's got his beliefs. He wants to share his beliefs with the world. And yeah, I mean, if you see someone like that start to change their kind of core values, she's not going to like that. Yeah, I mean, just the look on her face in this one scene, she does not look happy at all the changes he's making to this book. Um, yeah, I don't know. And yeah, maybe he does love the ego boost. There is a little bit of that at the end of the day. He is a writer. I mean, he is going to have a little bit of that, feeling where he's going to want validation for his work. And, Lumen comes along offering him this big paycheck, giving him all this compliment, saying, we'll put your book worldwide kind of thing. And yeah, I mean, that something that big something that enticing for Ricken. Maybe it was just too much for him to pass up at the end of the day. Maybe. Maybe. What if Gemma is the target and Cold Harbor is sifting through her binary memories or something? That is why they need Mark to sort through it. Ooh, interesting. Yeah, what is Cold Harbor essentially? What exactly is this mysterious secret Cold Harbor project? I mean, it does seem like Gemma is involved, or Miss Casey is involved in some manner. We saw that very clearly at the end of the first episode, even with the Cold Harbor screen and her face on it, and Mark working on that file directly. We hear in this episode they're around 85, 86% complete with Cold Harbor, so they're getting closer and closer to finishing it. So whatever it is, I imagine we will find out what Cold Harbor is in this season. I imagine that's not going to be some big cliffhanger that they carry over to season 3. Maybe part of the storyline of Cold Harbor they'll carry over to season 3. But I think at the very least we'll find out what Cold Harbor is. Even if the storyline isn't completely wrapped up in this season, we'll at least find out what it is. I do believe the final episode of season 2 is titled Cold Harbor. So I think we'll at least find out what it is. And yeah, who knows? Could it be sifting through Gemma's memories for some specific reason? Maybe. I don't know. I don't know, but I definitely want to know. No one joins the Kool-Aid cult until their cult turns into the full acid cult. Maybe. Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Let's see. Yeah, it's even more simply compromising your money to save who you are. I mean, it's a give and take, I suppose. I suppose it's really that's a question for you, I guess, for each individual. What means more to you? What do you hold at a greater value, your money or who you are? I mean, I imagine that answer could be different for everybody, which is, that's everybody's prerogative. But yeah, I imagine that's a case by case basis. Ricken 100% has illusions of grandeur. Of course, he goes for accepting the money and the fame. And again, he does have a little bit of that aspect to him too. He's a writer. He does want to be looked up to. He does want he wants his work to be liked. And that was the huge point of contention between him and Audi Mark, where he was constantly seeking Audi Mark's approval for his work. He wanted nothing more than his brother-in-law to like his work. And we find out some dark things, like you were telling me an interesting story the other day that I totally missed, about just kind of how mean Audi Mark used to be to Ricken about his work, in terms of, just straight up telling him, no, we used to make fun of you. It's like, it's so messed up. Like, Audi Mark is starting to reveal himself more and more to be kind of a cold and shallow individual. I mean, nothing like the original Innie Mark. Anyway, I feel like the more we learn about Audi Mark, the more we learn he's kind of a dick. I mean, who puts their wife's ashes in the basement in a box? Who does that to their wife? My God.
That and the ripping up the picture for just like this other woman that had an issue with it. He has done so many things that show us that Mark is he's not a very nice person. Um, it's in the book, you guys. I don't know if you guys in the chat have read Ricken's book,
It's in the
but
book.
I'm
Yeah.
obsessed with it. Obsessed. Totally in the cult. But in the book, right? When Gemma dies, Ricken mentions that Gemma was always supportive. She was always really kind to
Yeah.
him. And when Mark and his sister would laugh at him, which you could totally see, by the way, I could totally see Mark and his sister giggling and making fun of Ricken. It
Ugh.
was Gemma who would like tell him, "Oh, that's a great idea," or she would add ideas of her own, right? Because Gemma's a very like kind person. He held on to that. It was very like meaningful to him, and he made her a video, cassette tape of everything he liked about Gemma as a birthday gift, which is super sweet. Like, hey Gemma, these are
Yeah.
all of the things I like about you.
Yeah.
And when she passed away, he went over to Mark's and said, "Hey, I want my cassette back. It's my property, my intellectual property. I'll sue you if you don't give it to me." So Mark is like looking through the stuff, he can't find it. And then Mark says, like, it's not a big deal. Basically, we would listen to it to make fun of you, Rick, and everyone makes fun of you as soon as you leave the room, which is cruel, just cruel. That's why
It
he
is cool.
wanted. That's why he couldn't even figure out how to present the book because he's so afraid of Audi Mark's perception of him.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. That's right. I mean, we see him like, should I lean it against the house? Should I lean it against the door? How should like he wants everything to be perfect. He just wants Mark's approval. Even after he's straight up admitted to making fun of him, he still seeks his approval. And it does kind of paint Audi Mark in, you start again, they're peeling back the layers of these characters, and we're starting to learn a little bit more about who these people really are, and they are flawed individuals. Unfortunately, Mark is probably the most flawed out of all of them. Even yeah, it's messed up. It is messed up. Poor Ricken just wants some approval for his work, and Mark just fucking shits on him. Fucked up. So fucked up. We got Jerry Spenley for $5. Thank you so much, Jerry Spenley. I don't see a question attached, but if you're still in the chat and you have a specific question or topic or anything that you want us to discuss, please, by all means, drop it into the chat and we will definitely discuss it. But I very much appreciate the 5. Thank you so much, my friend. Thank you, thank you, thank you. But please, again, if you have a specific question, anything you want us to talk about, please definitely let us know. And we will dive head first into it. For sure. For sure. Gemma's way too attractive for him. I mean, it's you do get the sense of like you were saying about Gemma. She does seem like she is a kind person. We haven't really met too much about Gemma, but we saw just the very nature of Miss Casey, just very nurturing, very caring, very, considerate of others' feelings. So when you mentioned that to me, that she was kind of the only person that gave Ricken that reinforcement, that positive feedback that he maybe did need to hear, it made total sense, because that does kind of seem who Miss Casey is, and that's probably who Gemma is at the end of the day as well. She does have that kind of caring, nurturing aspect to her. So I could totally see her filling that role, where even when his own wife and own brother-in-law are laughing at him and making fun of him, Gemma's there to give him a kind word. And that kind of speaks to her character.
Yeah, and to the point of the chat, they're saying like he got lucky, like he's not good enough for Gemma. But we kind of get a line that evokes that sort of emotion. Right as the episode is ending, Gemma shows up, right, as Miss Casey, and says, "Your Audi," as her final line. "Your Audi once captured a butterfly." And it's her. So he did. He got lucky. He captured a butterfly, and look at his face. He's just so heartbroken.
I know. And yeah, this is the first time that Audi Mark is ever seeing Gemma since the accident. I mean, even though he does now know that she's probably still alive and stuck on that severed floor, this is the first time he's actually laying eyes on Gemma. And I think that was a perfect line to put that in there at that exact time, where yes, he caught a butterfly, because he did. I mean, he did. He found somebody in Gemma who just seemed to be very pure, very sweet, very, something that somebody would want, that kind of healthy relationship. And yeah, I mean, we see him, how he's treating her memory and how he's kind of not honoring her memory. Again, the whole ashes in the box in the basement thing kills me. How the heck could you ever do that to somebody you love? And then, as you mentioned, the ripping up of the picture just to try and sleep with somebody. It's so sleazy. And yeah, I mean, fucking Mark, man. Mark's got to get his shit together. He's got to get his shit together. But it's tough.
Yeah,
I mean,
the
he's seeing her
ashes
for
in
the
the
first time.
basement. That was so
Oh my
dark.
God.
Like,
It's so dark.
just in the
That
basement in a box. Oh God.
That is super dark. Super dark. Like how do you put your loved ones, the love of your life, your wife, how do you put her ashes in a box in a basement where Petey was sleeping? What the hell? Are you kidding me? Come on. This is so fucked. Oh man, so screwed. Yeah. Maybe the chips are collecting data from their brains, so when they are extracted, you can refine the data and recover the person. And that has been an interesting idea that I've been wondering about as well. Like, are these chips, are they multifaceted? Do they have other functions other than just severing a person into Audi and Innie? Are they kind of filling a different function. And yes, could they potentially be mapping the brain, essentially mapping consciousness in order to do that consciousness transfer? We saw the whole branch transfer thing when we saw all of the other protocols, the Glasgow protocol, the all of the different ones that were listed, and one of them was listed branch transfer. Part of me was wondering if that's what that protocol was maybe referring to, some kind of consciousness transfer where they are trying to map someone's consciousness. They are trying to map who somebody is on a, on that kind of level, so they can swap it from one body to another. Because I know the huge big theory out there, everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people in the Severance community think that the ultimate goal is to resurrect Kier. Some people think that they have preserved Kier's consciousness and they're trying to find a safe way to implant it into another body. Interesting theories. I mean, who knows what they're really doing? I don't know. But yeah, I always thought that was an interesting idea at the very least, the mapping of the consciousness to try and transfer it from one to another. But we also got Kiwi Skirt for 5 gifted memberships. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 gifted memberships from the wonderful Kiwi Skirt. Thank you so much, Kiwi. That is incredibly generous of you. And welcome one, welcome all to all of the new members of the channel. We have some official Severance emojis that all channel members have access to. Be sure to spam the chat with them as much as you please. And thank you again so much, Kiwi, for the gift of the 5 memberships. Looks like Wall Saint Tech is now a member, Corey is now a member, Jen the teacher is now a member, Mr. Rojo is now a member, and Antoine is also now a member. Welcome one, welcome all. So glad to have each and every one of you here. And thank you so much, Kiwi. Thank you again so much for the gift of the 5 memberships. That is incredibly generous of you, and you have always been super supportive of the channel, and I really can't thank you enough. And an awesome mod. Anyone who has not joined our Discord, Kiwi's always dropping links into the chat for anyone who wants to join our Discord. We do tons of watch parties and stuff in there. We have recently started doing watch parties for Severance. We got a lot of requests to do Severance watch parties because we usually do watch parties for most of the shows we cover. So every Friday, Ravener is going to be hosting Severance watch parties directly in the Discord. There won't be a YouTube show attached to it or anything. It's only in the Discord. So anyone who has not joined the Discord yet and wants to hang out and join the Severance watch parties and the after discussions as well, hop on into the Discord and come and join us every Friday night at 9 Eastern. We will be watching Severance in there and discussing it. We actually did the first one last night, and it was pretty fun, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, so much fun, you guys. And also just join the Discord in general. If you have any ideas, there's always somebody that you could talk to. It's so much fun.
Yeah, tons of theory crafting. There's a really awesome community of people there, and super happy and privileged to be a part of it. And yeah, you guys really bring it with some of these theories. Very interesting theories that I do love reading. Yeah, awesome stuff. I hope he finds any Gemma again, and she's like, yeah, I'm not interested. Oof. Oof.
Ooh.
Man.
She
I wonder
might.
what's gonna.
I
You think that's
mean,
a possibility? Yeah.
if she finds
Yeah.
out like you were not looking for me, you were with Helly or with Helena at this point, right? It's kind of
Yeah.
ruined a lot of the relationships. But Miss Kiwi wants her whoa.
Oh my God, that's right. Kiwi deserves a whoa. How did I almost forget about Kiwi's whoa? What is wrong with me? Kiwi, you deserve a whoa, and you're gonna get the glitter bomb. Whoa! And a glitter bomb for good measure. I mean, what is wrong with me?
Love
I can't
that.
believe I almost forgot the whoa. What is wrong with me? Sorry, head in the clouds tonight, guys. My bad. My bad. Wow. There is your whoa, Kiwi. And again, thank you so much. You have been such a great supporter of the channel. I really do appreciate it. I appreciate everybody who supports the channel. I really do. It's been a wild 2 years building this thing up and diving into these shows with everybody else. I very much appreciate each and every one of you. I really do. Awesome,
yes.
awesome community that we have here.
Congratulations, Jeremy. Jeremy does not like compliments, but yes, I saw your community post. Congratulations. If anybody deserves their success, it's definitely our Jeremy Eisenfire, Super kind, just super professional, super nice, awesome show. So congratulations. And I know you hated every second of that compliment.
No, it's totally fine. Totally fine. I do appreciate it. I really do. It was crazy. Yeah, we passed a mile marker on the channel recently, over 11 million total views, which is absolutely insane. Nothing I ever thought would happen here on this our small, humble little channel. So yes, it's again hugely appreciative for each and every one of you who show up to these streams and watch the videos. You guys have been so supportive, and we're going to continue. We will continue throwing out this content as long as people want to dive into these shows and have discussions on them. And we got a lot of other shows that we'll be diving into in the future once Severance is over as well. So again, huge thank you to each and every one of you. Really appreciate it. And thank you to you as well, PM and Ravener, my awesome co-hosts who help me every week diving into all of this madness. If you guys have not subscribed to PM, please make sure you take the time to do so. The link to her channel is always in the description of our streams. And you actually put out I think it's my favorite video you've done yet in terms of the personality. Which personality are you? Concerning Severance, and it was such a fun video. Again, anybody who has not sub to PM's channel, check out her most recent video. It is a good one. That was great.
Yeah.
That was a good
one. Thank you. Too kind he is, but thank you.
No, of course, absolutely. Awesome stuff. Again, I'm glad we have a show like Severance. It is a little bit different from things that I usually watch, but I like that. I like diving into shows that are a little bit different and do kind of maybe take me outside of my comfort zone every once in a while, and they challenge you. They're very cerebral. This show is very cerebral, and it's been fun to kind of dive into it for sure. The Mark she knew is no longer Mark. Yeah, Mark's changed. Mark has changed fundamentally. Even if he does get Gemma back, even if Audi Mark does get Gemma back, will it ever be the same between them? I guess that's an interesting question. Do you think if that ever happens with Mark reintegrating and any Mark, I imagine any Mark, once he's fully done reintegrating, I imagine any Mark is always going to be some small part of him, right? Like you can't just completely kill out one of these personalities, I don't think. It seems like they more merge into a symbiosis kind of thing based on what was happening with Petey. Kind of just molding into one. So I wonder if that is going to happen. Will it ever be the same dynamic between Mark and Gemma? If he ever does get Gemma back, first he has to find Miss Casey, switch her over to Gemma. If he can even do that, will it ever be the same between them? And again, you also have this whole other point of contention with the feelings that Mark has for Helly. And once Mark does fully reintegrate, are there going to be lingering feelings for both Helly and Gemma? Like this is, I imagine this is not going to end well for everybody. For somebody or for multiple somebodies, this is going to end in heartbreak, this relationship, this throuple or quadruple, wherever you want to call it.
The throuple.
Crazy.
Oh man, you guys. I defer to Miss Cobell. There will be no honeymoon ending for you, Mark. I just don't think it's gonna work out. How do you move on? How do you like go anywhere from there? So much has happened. But the chat knows all. You guys, does Mark get a happy ending with Gemma?
Yeah, what do you guys think? What do you guys think? Does Mark get his happy ending? Does he get a happy ending with Gemma? Does he get a happy ending with Helly? Or does this end bad for all involved? What do you guys think? Absolutely. Great question. Great question indeed. And I see what you started, PM. You started it, didn't you? Oh my God.
Yeah. My favorite compliment that Jeremy has ever gotten is somebody called him Big Dog. And I was like, I love that.
Oh God.
And they just kept saying Big Dog. So that's like my personal favorite. Big Dog.
Oh God.
But I want to read some of the comments. Let's celebrate a little. What are they saying? Because you guys are so creative. No. I'll read them.
Please no. Please no.
He'll end this one, guys.
No, this one we can read. Yeah, this is a great forum, and it is. I'm super grateful for this forum. it is. I love diving into these shows and hanging out with everybody and seeing what you guys think. It's I always like seeing what the chat thinks, and I know you feel the same way. Like you and I could get up here and talk Severance for hours and never get bored, but it's always fun to see what you guys think in the chat as well. What did you like about the episode? What did you not like about the episode? Everything in between. So I appreciate it. And yeah, PM, yeah, give the compliments to her. She's the one who deserves them, not me. Not me. I can't read these. I can't. I appreciate all of you though. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I very much appreciate each and every one of you. But yeah, let's see what Lily is saying and move on, shall we? Hate to say it, but Mark doesn't know how much he likes Helena. He couldn't tell the difference. So, I mean, could that be a possibility where Mark does start to develop feelings for even Helena? I mean, he couldn't tell the difference. So yeah, maybe he doesn't know. Maybe he doesn't know how much he likes her. Maybe he doesn't know what his real feelings are. You know, he couldn't tell the difference ultimately. So that is a possibility. Yeah. No, Mark is a hopeless romantic. Vanessa M says neither. Ooh, neither are going to get that happy ending. Okay. I think Gemma is dead, so no. Oof, Gemma might be dead. Yeah, is this even the real original Gemma? She isn't Gemma though. Yeah. Miss Casey is not Gemma, and we don't even know if this is the original Gemma's body at all. I mean, based on what we hear from Mark successfully identifying her body. But yeah, I don't know. I think Mark and or Helly / Helena will have to sacrifice themselves, and Gemma will get the happy ending, says Forever Autumn. Ooh, interesting. Mark, Helly, and Helena sacrificing their love so Audi Mark and Gemma can have the happy ending. You think that's a possibility? You think Helena, of all people, would ever sacrifice something like that for someone else?
Potentially. Potentially because we saw a part of Helena that we didn't know. This episode really brought in full circle what her life is like, how controlled she is, how unable to make decisions for herself or her own body, right? They're even wanting to put her into some sort of obligement therapy or
Obligement session. Yeah.
session. And she says, no, I don't need it. So she has no control. She has no control over her body. Maybe she does get to the point where I could see that Forever Adam. I could see her saying, I want someone to be happy. And maybe she is selfless because she has experienced not being in control of her own body in a way what she does to Helly, she goes through every day. So somebody like that, maybe there's an understanding. To me, she is now the description of, the phrase hurt people hurt people.
Ah, yeah. Okay. I like that. Yeah. I mean, yeah, maybe it's a possibility. Maybe it is a possibility. I mean, like you said, we did see a different side to Helena in episode 4. Yes, it was very devious. It was wrong on so many levels. But one thing I do feel was genuine was what she said to Mark in the tent. And like you mentioned this, she had no reason to offer up that information. She had no reason to tell Mark in that moment, I didn't like who I was on the outside. This is Helena that's speaking. This isn't Helly. She had no reason to offer up that information unless she was maybe being truthful. Maybe Helena doesn't really like who she is. Maybe she doesn't really want to be stuck in this corporate lifestyle where, like you said, she doesn't have any freedom over her own body, even where even they are telling her, no, you have to go back down to the severed floor. You have to relinquish control back to your innie. They're not giving her that choice. So when you guys put it like that, yeah, I could totally see that maybe Helena would get to a point where she does kind of sacrifice herself. Maybe it's not a sacrifice. Maybe for her, it's finally being able to get away from all of this. And if she's helping somebody else in the process, maybe that is something she would consider. I don't know. Yeah, I think maybe you guys are right. Maybe she would do it.
And yet again, another layer of consent, which you were one of the first, another compliment that he's going to hate. You were one of the first people that really brought in the subject of consent and the multiple layers of the consent that people are, not having in the show. And we see that with Elena, in a way, she doesn't get to consent what they do with her body, the way that they phrased it was so cruel. They said, Mark
Yeah.
will not work without Helly. We are giving him her.
Yeah.
Like giving, like this is a person, a human being, and yet he wants it. Here you go. You get whatever you want. We are giving him her without a choice, without, do you want to? Would this make you happy? No, we're giving him her. It was very cruel.
It was cruel. It was very cold, very calculating, and very, company oriented first. Even her own father wasn't even considering her feelings or her safety. I mean, because even she brings it up. You mean my Annie who tried to kill me? Her relinquishing control back to her Annie essentially is giving her Innie another chance to kill her. So this is a huge risk for Helena to take, and you can totally understand why she herself doesn't want to take it. But her father, the company, that's all that matters. It's, family seems to be secondary to the Egans, where legacy and Lumen is the main priority, family secondary. And yeah, I mean, even her own father is not even taking into consideration that I'm putting my daughter's life at risk by sending her back to that severed floor and having her relinquish control of who she is to her Innie. So it's, yeah, I mean, maybe she does get to a point where she does want out of all this. Maybe she does want away from all this. Maybe she doesn't want to be beholden and a slave to this company, essentially. So maybe she will get to a point where she will, be open to sacrificing herself essentially, or or giving Helly the keys to the car, even, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't
I
know.
like the point that you just made. We saw that Helly had, this back and forth with Helena, and they were just enemies, right? And Helly came up with the most creative way to end her life. She only was doing that because
Yeah.
she didn't want to work there, right? Now she has a reason. She has a really good reason to carry out the plan, to actually go through with it. Because what Elena did, if there is ever a reason, you would think that's what it is. So maybe it's gonna get interesting, and maybe we'll see Helly try again, attempt on her life. Yeah.
Oof. Yeah, maybe, maybe. It's, I mean, it's risky. I mean, if I was a severed person, if I was, had this thing going on and I knew ahead of time that my Innie already tried to kill me once, yeah, I'd be probably acting the exact same way as Helen. I'd be, hell no, no way. There's no way I'm going back down to that severed floor. No freaking way. I don't care about this company. I don't care about your Cold Harbor. I don't care about your 85%. Shove that 85% where the sun doesn't shine. It's, you can understand why she's so resistant to it, because yeah, it's completely giving away control of her autonomy. She's she's coming face to face with the fact that she has no agency, and that must be a scary thought.
Yes, but Andy, Jeremy, you are a family man. Jeremy Eisenfire always mentions family, everything for family. What you're not
Oh,
considering is this is your family.
it's her
So that
family
puts
too.
another layer to it. So you say, hell no, I
Yes,
wouldn't do that. However, that's your family, Jeremy. Like,
that's a
mm,
good point. That is a good point. At the end of the day, as fucked up as this is, it's her family. This is her family. This is her father. This is her company. This is her family's legacy. Yeah.
so what do you do? Do
What
you
if?
go in or not? In chat, do you go in or not?
Yeah. What do you think, guys? If you were a severed individual and you had been through what Helena had been through, I mean, forget about all the devious stuff she did just for a quick second. Just focus on just the one aspect of knowing that your Innie already tried to kill you once. Would you ever go back to that severed floor and relinquish that control to your Innie again, knowing that? Or would you say, hell no, screw you, screw the family, screw the company, get out of here? What would you guys say? What would you guys do? Yep, no agency. They have no agency, neither of them. And it's, when you share a body like that, there's always going to be a degree of one and the other both having no agency at a time. It's fucked up. The separate system's fucked up. I would break everything. Howdy says not. How much are they going to pay me? JK? Yeah, how big is the paycheck at the end of the day? Um, let's see what else. I would want a clean slate, any at most. Ooh, okay, interesting, interesting. We are back, and oh yes, indeed. No, do not go back inside. Makita also says no. Vanessa also says no, do not go back. So it seems like most people are saying no, that they would not go back if their any tried to kill them, which I think that's the understandable answer. What about you, PM? I mean, if you were in Helena's shoes, would you? I mean, I imagine you would probably not want to go back either, right? I mean, just the fact of knowing that she did that once, she's capable of trying it again.
I probably would. I say
Okay.
yes. I vote yes. And the reason why is
Ooh.
because, as you see, in the family, she does not have any agency. She doesn't have consent.
Yeah.
So, in a way, she says, I don't like who I am on the outside, in a way that is providing somebody an opportunity to be a better person. I know that Helly is loved, that she has a relationship, and what I did to her, right? So, in a way, I would say, sure, if I don't get to have a happy life, at least she gets an opportunity to have a happy life. Yeah, she might attempt on my life, but what is
Yeah.
my life? What is my life anyway? I would go back.
What's it worth at this point? Yeah, that's a good point.
Would you?
That's a I mean, I guess it's an interesting point of perspective. I guess. I mean, what do you value? What have you been through? What value do you place on your life, essentially? And someone like Helena, who doesn't have that freedom, who doesn't have her own agency, maybe someone like that would maybe value their life a little bit less, where they would kind of take that risk again. But if it was me, if my any tried to kill me, would I go back? I don't know. Shit. I don't think I could. I guess it would depend on the any and how much, because it seems like this any Helly is a lot different from very early season one any Helly, where all she wanted was to be done with this. All she wanted to do was quit. This Ellie seems like she's got a little bit more to live for. She has built up relationships with her coworkers. She did start to fall in love with Mark. So I don't think this Helly would ever try killing herself again. So if I knew that in my head, yes, I would risk it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But man,
I think of Irving. This makes
okay.
me recall Irving and his sacrifice, because Irving
Okay.
sacrificed so that somebody else could have, Helly in this case, could have an opportunity at being together with Mark, right? And it's like this sense of sacrifice if your life is unhappy anyway, right? Which to me it was just Irving, and the sacrifice that he made was amazing, because
Yeah.
he on purpose was like screaming Master Malshak, like he's like, I totally know that this will be the end of my life, but I'm okay with it. And I love a character like that, which is why I love Boyd, Sarah. Like, I love a
Boy.
character that has this conviction, right? To do the darkest things, or to do the
Yeah.
sacrifice that nobody else would do. And I just love what he did, and the way that he did it too, dragging her and being like, Master Balshak. It was great.
I'm gonna kill her, Mr. Milchick. I'm gonna kill her. She's a fucking Egan. So good. So good. And I do 100% agree with you. I love these kinds of characters. These kinds of characters who are willing to put their self on the line, who are not willing to compromise their morals. They're not willing to compromise their stance just for the sake of convenience. Where so many people would be, people want what's convenient. People don't want to take the tough road. People are always going to take the path of least resistance. But that's why I 100% agree with you. I love characters like this who are willing to put that on the line, who are willing to make the ultimate sacrifice to benefit somebody else, not yourself, to benefit solely somebody else. And Irving did that. Irving did exactly that. He knew exactly what the consequences would be for that. And he went and he did it gladly, and he did it well, very effectively. I'm going to kill him, Mr. Milchick.
I'm gonna kill him, Mr. Shaq. I love that. It's my favorite line. It's my favorite scene. It's amazing. I love it so much.
I love it so much. It really is so good, isn't it? That and the way he says Seth. Yes, do it, Seth. The way he says "do it, Seth" had me in tears the first time I heard him say that. Let's the look on John Turturro's face, the delivery, the dialogue, the look on Milchick's face, like he's like, "Holy shit, the fuck's going on here?" Everything about that scene was good. Yeah, I miss Annie Irving. I'm glad we're learning a little bit more about Audi Irving. I'm glad that John Turturro's not off the show, and I was hoping that this was going to be the direction that they would take now that the Annie is gone. Focus a little bit more on learning more about the Audi, which they do in this episode. And again, you and I talked a little bit about this scene in particular, and how strange it was, and how awkward it was between this weird meeting between Audi Irving and Audi-Bert, where Bert has apparently just gotten done getting into a little bit of a fight with his own husband, where they even went as far as to cancel their trip because of Irving pounding at his door. And the way you resolve that is you invite him to a ham dinner and tell him bring wine because we like wine. Like, I cannot wait to see where this goes.
Yeah. It didn't make sense. I'm not following the logic. So he says, my husband Fields is quite upset because I was fired for having an inappropriate sexual relationship with somebody at the office. So understandably, the husband will be upset, cancels the trip. And your response to that is to invite the man that you potentially cheated on your husband with to a ham dinner, a sit down ham dinner, and to ask him to bring expensive wine because they both like it. I'm not following the logic. I really am not. And then he flirts a little, right? You and I talked
Yep.
about this. He's like, hey, do you want to ride? I know where you look at that picture. I love that. I know where you live.
Do you want to ride? I know where you live after all. Like, oh my fucking God. Yeah.
Look at his smile. That's a flirt.
That is a flirty smile. 100%. That is the smile of someone that is flirting. And we talked about this too. Like it's already in the back of their minds, right? Like both of them know that their innies were carrying on a relationship with each other inside the office. We hear from Bert say in the scene that I was let go from Lumon a few weeks ago because I had an unsolicited relationship with one of my coworkers. And Irving hears this, and they instantly, right or no, they realize, holy shit, this was the person I was intimate with inside Lumon. This is who my innie was attracted to. So having that in the back of their minds, already having that seed planted where they both know they've already been in a circumstance where they were just naturally attracted to each other. Yes, I mean, you see the flirt happen instantly, even though Christopher Walken's character Bert is married, even though it seems like they were happily married by the looks of it at the end of season one, it seems like they still can't resist this urge to flirt with each other and to, again, essentially maybe even fall in love with each other again, which I think they will. I do think we're going to see Audi Irving and Audi-Bert start to come a little bit closer. This dinner is not a good idea.
It's not a good idea. And it makes me happy for them because I did like the relationship between Irving and Bert. However, what about Fields? We don't know anything about Fields. Fields might be a perfectly kind, nice person. I love that.
He may be. I mean,
but
it seems like
I can't stare at it. It's so funny. But what I don't like about Lumon is that they told him you're being let go, you're being fired, right? They lied and said that he was retiring. That was not true. They fired him, and they said an inappropriate sexual relationship with a coworker. Yes, I will concede that they had a relationship. However, it was not inappropriately like sexual. They did nothing of the sort. It was more like a crush. It was quite innocent, and I don't like the way that Lumon made it sound like it was sexual, like just completely inappropriately sexual. Yeah, it wasn't, because when Bert has always been the one that has gone after Irving. He's the one that touched his little hand first and took him into the room, into the room with the greenery, and wanted to like kiss him. And Irving said no. He's like, I'm not ready. So Irving was quite sweet about it, and Lumon has corrupted that.
Ah, yes. Irving was a little bit of the more innocent one, where yes, he was very much feeling, he's infatuated with him, he's attracted to him, but like you said, ultimately, yeah, it was Bert who made the move. It's Bert who touched his hand. It was Bert who initiated the first contact. And yeah, it's man, again, I do tend to see the same thing happening here. I don't think this dinner is a good idea. I don't think it's going to end well for all of them. I mean, like you said, especially Fields. We don't know anything about this Fields character other than that one quick little scene we get at the end of season one. But they looked perfectly happy together. Yeah, this is going to be an interesting and awkward dinner to say the
Well,
least.
let's
Um,
defer. Let's defer to the chat. We have an expert in the chat. Cortissimo says, you know, me and my husband's boyfriend. So this is correct representation. Okay, great. We're happy to know that.
it's a
So
loose story
tell
for
us
such.
more.
Oh,
Yeah.
awesome,
Okay.
awesome, good. That is
We
great.
learn
That is
something
great.
new. We learn something new every time we do a stream. So thank you so much
Hmm.
for educating us on that. And potentially it could work then. The trouble has been mentioned over and over and over. I thought it was going to
Yeah.
be like sort of mentioned one time as a throwaway statement, but at this
Yep.
point they have mentioned it and they keep bringing it up. So maybe we're going
Yeah.
there.
Maybe. Well, that is a good question, and I would love to get Kursmo's opinion on it, and everybody else in the chat. Do you guys think that there is a possibility that this could work out well for all three of them? Could we actually see Bert, Irving, and Irving's husband actually all three of them happy together? Do you think that's even a slight possibility, or will it end in heartbreak for one of them? Essentially, I don't know. But yeah, I'm glad I'm super glad to hear that though. If you're watching Severance and you're getting you're feeling like the representation's been good, then that's awesome. I'm super glad to hear that. That's great. Because sometimes these topics can get stigmatized and not handled with the
Mhm.
best of care sometimes in other shows. So yeah, Severance seems to be doing it right. And I do agree with you. Season one, it seemed like Irving and Bert, their relationship did kind of seem the sweetest. It was just, it seemed the most natural. They were kind of just naturally drawn to each other. I think Mark and Helly were too, but Mark and
Mhm.
Helly were, I don't know, it was just a little bit different. I think Bert and Irving's was a little more pure, I guess you could say, between the two of them.
It was just so quiet. It
Um,
was so sweet. The tote. He brings him the tote because he knows that Irving likes a little tote bag.
yeah,
It was the sweetest thing. And like you mentioned this to us, right? That it was a specific ask by Irving's the actor that plays Irving, a specific ask for them to be doing the roles together because they are friends. And you could really
yeah,
tell it was the sweetest. It was my favorite story. Of course, now it's corrupted again.
yeah.
Severance is just breaking hearts all over the place.
It is. I mean, it presents these very, very nice relationships. It presents these very interesting concepts that you want to root for at the end of the day. But then, yes, it introduces a little bit of darkness to it. It introduces a little bit of the real world to it sometimes, and sometimes the real world is not all that pretty. It's unfortunate, but that's just the case. Um, but yeah, it's when they said season two was going to get dark, they were not freaking kidding. They were not kidding. This show is definitely taking a step into, and I kind of understand why the creator was saying season one was more about them as children, the childhood aspect of it, where season two is them growing into adolescence. And when you are
Mhm.
going into adolescence, these are the kinds of things that you start experiencing for the first time, your first love, your first heartbreak, your first crush. These are the kinds of things that they are ultimately going to go through. So this is an adolescent season for the cast of Severance, where they're experiencing all of this stuff for the same time, for the first time. And yeah, dinner gives more time to discover tells. Alcohol emerges, guards to go down. Plus, I think their family may be anti-lumen too. Ooh, interesting. Interesting. Anti-lumen. And yeah, dinner does give you that sense to kind of potentially see a better aspect of who people really are when you're spending that kind of time together, just staring at each other, and you see how somebody is in a social setting. You can discover tells a little bit easier in a situation like that. So I do agree there. Yeah. That's the throuple we've all been waiting for. Maybe it is. Maybe it is. Yeah, the show wants the throuple so bad. It really
They
does,
do.
doesn't it? I mean, ever since they introduced the idea of the throuple, it does. It seems like it's everywhere, whether it's Mark, Helly, Helena, Audi Mark, Bert, Irving, his husband. Like these throuples keep popping up all over the place. So it's
Mhm.
like, yeah, it's like Severance wants the throuple to happen. And I think they want it to happen.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And we might get that. I'm excited for the ham dinner now. Pam Jam, one of like our beloved Sevies, mentioned, what about if Bert and the husband Fields try to murder Irving? What about if they're not good
Ooh,
people, right? What about
ooh,
if it's a trap?
a
Why is he
trap.
following
Well,
him around?
and that I have always wondered that. Like, is he really just following him because this crazy guy banged on my door in the middle of the night? Is this really the only reason why you're following him multiple times too? It's not like you just followed him
Mhm.
once. Seems like he's following him almost every night. This is the second time he's followed him to this phone booth alone. Um, and I know you and I and many other people have talked about it. You did a great Theorio video on it, which convinced me that maybe Irving is already part of this rebellion. I mean, no, we know that he has some kind of training that is very, that helped him kind of uncover that Helly was really Helena. He has some kind of training. He has some kind of expertise in the real world at, whether it's detective work, espionage, ex-military, whatever he is, or Audi Irving has some kind of training. That's the kind of person he is. And if he is already a part of some kind of rebellion, because I mean, who's he talking to on these phone booth calls? When he's calling this person in the phone booth, he's always talking about my innie got the message, or they
Mhm.
fired me. I think they figured out what my innie was up to. So clearly he's got a plan. Clearly he was working at Lumen not just for the paycheck. He was there on a mission. There was a reason he was at Lumen. And it seems like it was most likely to find that elevator, find that hallway, and that elevator seemed to be the main mission. Now, if Audi Burt realizes that, or if Lumen realizes that, they could have interjected Burt into his life specifically for that reason, specifically to kind of set him
Mm.
up at some point. So that would be such a tragic ending if it did kind of go that way, where Audi
Mhm.
Irving is already part of this rebellion and he's already trying to take Lumen down, while meanwhile Audi Burt is working for Lumen the whole time and trying to figure out what Irving is doing because he knows that he's part of the rebellion. This could get dark between these two.
Wow. Wow, I didn't think about that. That would match why it was Bert who kind of went for Irving. It was Bert who approached him.
Was it a
It was
setup from the
Bert who
beginning?
touched his
Yeah.
hand, who
Mhm.
brought the tote bag, right? That would make a lot of sense, and that would be heartbreaking. But it would be
Ah,
such a good twist because I didn't see that coming. Yeah, I
yeah, I
kind of
wouldn't
like
see it
it.
coming either. Yeah, I mean, it's again, it's tragic, but sometimes dark and tragic shit happens, and that's why I do like stories that like this that are a little bit more hard hitting, that don't mind going into areas where other shows won't dare tread. And I think that's why, I know you and I have talked about this in the past too, but I think that's one of the reasons why we really like From. Because right from the very beginning of From, right from the very first episode, the first 10 minutes of the first episode, From does something. I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen From, but anyone who hasn't watched it, I would highly recommend checking out From on MGM Plus. It's one of the best shows to come out in years. But From that, I think that's why I really enjoyed From, because the first 10 minutes of that very first episode, we see just how far this show is willing to go. And they're willing to do things that other shows just wouldn't do. That does take balls sometimes in order to
Yeah.
kind of touch on some of these darker things. Like especially anytime you have a scene like that involving a child and something tragic like that happening. Most shows would stay away from that as far as they possibly could. From dove head first into it in the very first episode. So I do appreciate when shows are willing to take a risk every once in a while and talk about the darker aspects of life. Not every show is willing to do that.
Hmm. Oh, I love that. I love that for From. It made it turned me into a fan right away because the message that I got is, are you our type of person? We want to know if you're our type of person, and don't continue on if you didn't like this. 10 minutes. If you're out, you're out. If you're in, you're in.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
was in. Also, what I love about Severance is that it does do the same sort of thing where it's handling like really complicated topics, and it's
Yeah.
handling them all in one episode. It's thing after thing after thing, but
Mm.
they don't make us wait for cliffhangers. They're just like, we're reintegrating. In the last 2 minutes, we are like going to almost drown Helena in the middle of the episode. They don't do the cheap find out in the next episode sort of thing.
Yep.
They just
Yeah.
give you all of the information, you get answers, and it leaves you sort of like shaken because you didn't expect so much to happen in one episode or for it to randomly happen. You expected that to be like a finale or for them to make a big deal out of it, and they don't. So I
Mhm.
like the storytelling aspect, that it's new and it's refreshing because we're all used to that. Find out in the next episode and waiting a week to find out what happens. Is he reintegrated or not? So I like the approach that they're taking.
I do too. I agree. I do agree. It's a good approach, and it's just a well structured show from start to finish. And yeah, I like, that they're not afraid to kind of dive into some of this stuff. And it's, again, it's going to be interesting to see where the rest of the season. It's hard to believe we've only had 5 episodes so far. I feel like, so I know I say this every week, but I do. I really feel like so much has happened in only 5 episodes. And like you said, it's because they are structuring it that way, where they are giving us the complete beginning, middle, and ending arc of a story in one episode. And those are usually the best kinds of shows, in my opinion. Shows that have the general, larger, bigger picture, the overarching arc, and the smaller, intermediate ones in between episode to episode that kind of start in one episode and get wrapped up by the end of that very same episode. They're not dragging things on for multiple episodes at a time. So I love the pacing of season two. I feel like they're giving us a lot. So much has happened in only 5 episodes, and yeah, I shudder to think what we're going to get in the last five. 5 more episodes. We are at the halfway point right now, ladies and gents. We are
Mhm.
halfway through Severance season two. And I gotta say, I am enjoying it. I'm very much enjoying it. I feel like season two picked up right where season one left off in terms of them kind of picking up that ball and not losing momentum and running with it. And it'll be interesting to see how these last five episodes play out. I get the feeling they've got a lot of big stuff planned if they've already done this much this fast.
I mean, the next one
Crazy.
is called Attila, right? We were
Yep.
kind of discussing that a little bit. The
Yep.
names also,
The
they keep
name.
escalating. The
Yep.
names keep escalating, right? Like we started off very nice, kind. Hello, Mrs. Cobell, Miss Selvin. Goodbye, Mrs. Cobell. Very
Yep.
like nice and sweet. Then we go to Trojan's horse, and now Attila. I mean, if we know anything about Attila the Huntsman, it's not gonna be good. It's gonna be
Oh
just
no.
bloody.
It's gonna be. I mean, I'm dreading the day when we get a Caligula episode title, and it's gonna fucking go off the fucking deep end. Like, what's going on? Where is this
We
show
might get
going
that
over there?
painting, right? The painting where the
We might.
departments are fighting.
Yeah, we might. We might. Um, but then I also wanted to touch a little bit on the memorial service for Irving, which was very interesting, and even more interesting once you kind of dove a little bit deeper into it and told me some of the things that you were telling me in terms of like what the watermelon actually represents, in some cultures, and what, how there is a little bit of a deeper meaning to this scene. And I, like you said, I get the feeling after you told me that they did not choose a watermelon by mistake. That was very purposeful, I think, now. But what did you think overall about the memorial service? It was nice to see them pay tribute to Irving, so I do appreciate that. They kind of demanded a funeral, and luckily they got it, even though Mark is, oh, as long as it doesn't take too long, I can stick in the mud, Mark. But, what was your take overall on the funeral and on the funeral session for Irving and some of the deeper themes behind it?
Yeah. Guys, go with me on this journey. So, the watermelon, right? Um, I'm Mexican. For Mexican Day of the Dead, the watermelon is a big thing. It is often, put together in the altar of the Day of the Dead because it reminds us of the skeleton of the body,
Mhm.
um, the dead body specifically. So when they put a watermelon there, I started following the clues. There are three people who are famously known in Mexican culture for having painted watermelons upon their death, that they themselves kind of orchestrated. It is believed. And these three people are painters. And who is also a painter? Irving is a painter. So we have
Irving.
Frida Kahlo. Yeah, Irving is a painter. Frida Kahlo, a famous painter, Mexican artist, paints the watermelon. This is 8 days before she dies. She paints sandias, which is the painting that is represented here, and she marks them with Viva la Vida. Um, Viva la Vida. You know what that means. But
Yeah.
basically, the meaning of it saying, I'm about to transition into the afterlife by choice. It is believed that she did this by choice. The reason behind her choice was the pain. She had a tumultuous relationship with Diego Rivera. Her life was full of pain, not only physical pain because she suffered from a lot of like a physical ailments, but also emotional because her relationship
Mm.
with the famous painter Diego Rivera was horrifying. It was full
Mhm.
of cheating, scandals. He actually cheated on her with her own sister.
Oh
Sister.
my God.
By the way, you guys, who else cheated with somebody's sister or so-called sister? Mark. Because
Mark
Helena keeps
with
saying,
Helena.
Helly is my sister.
Yes. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
There was such emotional pain in her life. She tried multiple times to end her life at her own hands, right? Who tries that? Helly. Helly tries
Yeah.
multiple times to
Yeah.
hurt herself or her sister. Um, and finally, when she has her successful attempt, she paints sandias, very different from her original work. And it's not only signifying the death, the day of the death, but signifying for a painter, I have lived a life. I hope for my exit to be joyful, and I hope never to return again.
Ugh.
Those were her words. Diego Rivera dies after this. And before dying, he also paints sandias, his very own painting of watermelons. The watermelon signifying in Mexican culture the transition, the hope to not return, that now you are entering a world of the dead and you're not coming back. And we have Rufino Tamayo, who is there sitting down there next to Irving. Rufino Tamayo also painted watermelons, Mexican culture, and the significance of dying with purpose, dying and choosing to die because you are in so much pain. And it
Yes.
reminds us of the line Irving said at the beginning of the season, I just want the pain to stop.
Yeah.
He then made the decision to sacrifice his life, right? I'm gonna kill him, Mr. Milchick. Basically ending his life by choice without regret. And then he is portrayed in a watermelon, a painter. So if we follow the clues, it's all there, you guys.
It's super profound. Like when you started explaining it to me, I thought, oh wow, that yeah, there's no possible way that this was a watermelon by coincidence. Like there's no way that the Severance crew didn't have something like this in mind. I feel when they crafted this scene, specifically made it a watermelon. Because yes, like you said, there's so many parallels, there's so many connections between her story and so many of our severed characters and our innies in particular. Irving is the very epitome of that sacrifice, what he did for Helly to bring Helly back, knowing it would sacrifice himself, while at the same time, as you mentioned, also just wanting to be done with it, wanting the sadness to be over, essentially. So the parallels here are just endless here. So I'm so glad you caught this, and I loved hearing about it. I love learning about it, and it seemed like the chat was as well. Because yeah, I love when Severance goes a little bit deeper, and they do draw off real world stuff. Sometimes sometimes you draw off real world tragedy, even to find inspiration for a story to make it better, to give it a deeper meaning to people for people to connect with. At the end of the day, that's what storytelling is, for people to connect. And this was a great find on your part in terms of just recognizing all of these similarities and how closely connected it is to the Day of the Dead and her story in particular. And we even found this other painting that we talked about a little bit here of her and how like just incredibly Severance this painting is here, where the two hearts, two sides of one whole, and even going so far as having these scissors severing the artery with the blood dripping down onto her dress. Like, it really does fit super well with so many of the themes we see on Severance. So this was such a good catch on your part.
Well, and you found this painting, right? After we talked, entitled Hermanas, Sisters, which Elena keeps saying, she is my sister. We think of each other as sisters, right? And Frida tended to paint her life and her pain, the pain not only of the relationship, but the physical pain that she was in. And she always did this twin thing where it was herself either sharing an artery, sharing a body part, but seeing herself reflected in a different way. And they're dressed differently, which really invokes Severance. When we think of Severance, these are essentially two people. We notice the difference. They are not the same person. We also get the Kier connection where he says he had a twin brother that he had to sever, and Frida's cutting that tie with the scissors, severing herself from that sister, that other version of herself, which is essentially what Kier did, right?
Yeah. It's the themes of twins and that duality that comes with being a twin is super similar to the severed program itself. Like you said, essentially, when you're becoming a severed individual, you're creating a twin. You are creating a sibling, a twin. And like you said, even Helena purposely points that out, where I look at my Annie as my sister. And it just the themes go so deep between all of this and what Severance is doing. Like, just Severance at its core, what the severed program is essentially. It's creating that twin. It's having that other aspect of you. And like you mentioned with Kier and Dieter, very similar to her and her sister, where it's a tumultuous relationship where Kier did ultimately feel like he needed to sever this emotional attachment he had to his brother in order to take that next step and become the Kier he wanted to be. So the similarities are so prevalent and super profound that I was so glad you caught this, and it was super interesting to learn more about it. Awesome stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it really, the connection was shocking to me because when she painted specifically about the pain and the relationship when Diego Rivera cheated on her with her own sister, she tended to paint herself in a way that she was hurting herself. She was either cutting her hair or hurting parts of her own body. So anytime that there was trouble in her life, the pain was inflicted upon herself, which is what Elena was doing. What these people do. Mark with the loss of his wife. When they're going through pain, they hurt another part of themselves. It is themselves, but it's this any persona that gets to feel the pain of childbirth, or the pain of losing a loved one, or the pain of love lost or and gone wrong. They're choosing this other section of themselves, their any, to suffer for them.
Pretty much. And this painting does kind of depict that, where we have her, like you said, severing a part of herself, cutting her own artery, having the blood drip down, whereas we see the opposite, keeping her sister intact. Her sister is kept intact. There's no blood. There's no severed artery. The heart is intact. Even her heart is open on her side. So like you can totally see, like, she's drawing herself, painting herself in this kind of predicament, in this kind of image, and keeping her counterpart clean from it, in a sense. It's super crazy, but it's super interesting, and it was just a really good connection to find. I never would have found this. I'm so glad that you found this and were able to kind of tell us about it. But I am very much convinced this watermelon is not random. They definitely picked this watermelon, probably having this in mind. So that was a great find. I hope for my exit to be joyful, and I hope to never return again. Profound, super profound, those words. Yeah, awesome stuff. What an episode. And this is, again, this is why I do enjoy when Severance dives a little bit deeper into some of these stuff, into some of these themes and some of these stories. And, sometimes life's dark, unfortunately. Sometimes you have to confront the darker things in life. You can't just sweep them under the rug. And that is what we're seeing our severed crew go through. They are going through the shit. They're going through the real stuff. The innies, the outies, they're all going through it. And I think we're going to see who handles these things better and who kind of crumbles under the pressure. And that's kind of what we saw a little bit in this episode, where Mark wasn't handling it. He wasn't able to kind of stand up to the pressure. He is kind of crumbling under it. He's kind of trying to at least sweep it under the rug, where he's not confronting Helly, not telling her everything that happened on the Orpo, not telling her what Helena really did with her body. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. Again, this thing, Mark needs to come clean. He needs to come clean super fast. If Helly ends up finding out what Helena did from somebody else, it will forever kill her trust in Mark, and they'll never be the same. And it's going to be interesting to see, where is this going to go? Which way will Mark ultimately land? Will he man up and tell her, or will he try to just play it off like he's the victim too? I don't know. And I love in the back, Malice Palace, another little reference to the woes, the four tempers.
I like that you point that out because of the interaction that's happening right as that's in the background. It is malice. So remember when we were discussing the tempers and who might tame what? Mark has become very dark. Everybody said, oh, potentially he is going to be maybe frolic or giving him something nicer. And we said, definitely Helena is malice. But is Mark not being so malicious? Mark is being quite malicious in this episode. And I see the chat saying it would be horrible to stay with a man like Diego Rivera. I agree. But is that not the predicament that Helly would be in? He would have to stay with somebody that cheated on her, basically, essentially, knowing or not knowing, consenting or not consenting with the sister.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then
didn't
so
tell
far
her
to
brother.
keep it from them. It's so fucked up, man. It is so fucked.
Some people make that choice. Will Helly make that choice? I don't know. Could you even continue a relationship like that? It's definitely a difficult predicament because there was no consent on Mark's part.
Yeah. Yeah, and it does. I mean, the consent becomes a huge problem among severed individuals and intimate relationships. It's one of those things where you would almost want to get written consent from both parties before you even attempt to do something like that. I know it sounds a little weird, but when you have two people sharing a body and only one of them is consenting to what they're doing, that's a problem. It is a violation at the end of the day. You are sharing this body. It is both of yours. And for Helly to have that happen to her, and then for him not to tell her about it after he finds out, yeah, it's bad. It's sticky. It's dark. It's not right. It's not right on Mark's part. He's got to come clean at some point, and he should have done it day one, right when she kind of got back to the severed floor. And even from the very beginning of the episode, he was being a little bit cold to her. I feel where when they're in Milchick's office, and they're all kind of screaming at Milchick, and Mark instantly says, what if this is still her? What if it's still Helena? Like even at that moment, even in that office, even after everything that happened, he's still doubting it's her, still doubting she is Helly. And yeah, on Helly's part, you can totally understand why one of her first questions to him was like, you couldn't tell the difference? You couldn't tell it wasn't me? And he just, again, with another cold answer, no, I guess I don't really know you. What the fuck? Who are you and what have you done with Mark? Is what I was thinking.
Exactly. Man. Such a painful statement, especially when she's like, not everything's a lie, some things are true. Like referencing me and you, right? Me and you. Like we are real, Mark. And Mark saying, like, I don't even know you. All of a sudden, I go from a full-on relationship, right, to I don't know you. And I do see like people in the chat commenting the connecting it to corporate and the work wife, work husband, sort of relationships that are out there. And yeah, I mean, essentially, they're
Yeah.
carrying on this emotional affair. Do they even know each other? They don't know each other out of the office. You see that in the corporate world. And it brings up the question of the child. Could you imagine? A lot of people are saying that there might be a baby, right?
Yes.
That's the
Yes.
next step. That's where we go when we see that something has happened on screen.
Yeah.
Because why would
Yeah.
you show us otherwise, right?
Yeah.
um if there is a baby, Mark is acting this way with Helly, and then she has to come into the office carrying this child of this non-consensual situation, and Mark is
Yeah.
being so mean. Like, that is, oh god, this is dark, you guys. This is so dark.
Uh, it is like it is. It's stepping into really dark territory that it's going to have lasting consequences for all involved. I mean, even if everything was smooth sailing from here on out and nothing else went wrong, there's already lasting consequences. But yes, you add a child into that mix. If Helly does end up getting pregnant through that, and she doesn't even, I mean, imagine that if she just wakes up, she comes into the severed floor one day, switches over from Audi to Innie, and she's experiencing morning sickness or something. Like, how does she process something like that? And imagine going from not even knowing you were intimate with someone to finding out you're pregnant, and it was completely against your will and you had no say over it. That's going to be dark. Like, I almost hope they don't go that dark, to be honest.
Me too.
But I guess that's a question for UPM and for the chat. What do you guys think? Do you guys think there's a possibility that Helly got pregnant during Helena and Mark's affair? Is there a possibility that they will go that route? Do you think Helly is pregnant, or do you think they won't go there? What do you think, PM? Pregnant or not pregnant?
I mean, really, I don't know, because if you would have asked me when we started the season 2, right? Oh, is
Yeah.
Severance gonna go there? Racism, consent, all of I never expected any
Right.
of this. I know
Right.
you told us, oh, it's gonna get dark and this and that. I never
I didn't know it was going
expected
to get
that.
this dark, though.
I never expected this. So
Yeah.
I'm inclined to say Severance is not gonna go there, but hey, they're going dark. I have no idea where we're even gonna end the season. They might. There are babies in that new intro, little babies in suits. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know, you guys. I'm gonna say no. I'm going to be hopeful that we keep
Yeah.
it innocent, and I'm gonna say no. What do you
Okay.
think?
I don't think they're going to go there. No, I don't think she's pregnant. No, I don't think that. I don't think they would take it there. I feel like they have enough conflict built into the story. I mean, a story like this, you have to have conflict. Obviously, you have to have conflict because you have to have conflict resolution. That is storytelling. But I feel like they've already got a big, tangled, twisted web already on their hands that they don't need to add that to it. It's already incredibly tangled and twisted and dark. So I don't think they need to go there. So I'm not really expecting it, but I don't know. I could very well be wrong. Could very well be wrong. But yeah, what do you guys think? Will Helena or Helly, both of them, will we find out that she did indeed get pregnant? Kiwi says, I hope not. Toothless Paste, I love that name still, love it. Toothless Paste, they 100% could have set it up with the senator's wife. Now, that's a very interesting point. We did
Yep.
see that very strange senator's wife scene where this senator had his wife severed for the sole ordeal of her being the one who has to give birth to this child. So his Audi wife doesn't have to feel the pain of it, doesn't have to go through the experience of a 9-month long grueling labor period, pregnancy period. And so she can kind of just reap the rewards of having the child after the innie has already been through this, traumatic experience. And it's very traumatic too, because, for the innie, and that's way worse than being a severed employee. I would imagine being a severed spouse where your only purpose is to is to bear a child that you're never going to get to hold, you're never going to get to raise yourself, you're never going to get to see this child again. Probably your job is to birth this child, and that's it. It's super fucking dark. So yeah, maybe the senator thing was a potential setup for something like that happening. I mean, that's a possibility. Toothless Paste. So yeah, I don't know. I hope they don't go the pregnant route. Big Chill says no, not pregnant. Kurtzmo says Helly is definitely preggers. If that rabbit dies, prego. Oof, maybe. Yes, because why would they create that storyline with Mark's sister meeting that pregnant woman before and after birth? And as Brecken brings up the same thing, the senator's wife, was that a foreshadowing for something like this happening, for a severed employee getting pregnant? And that's not the only foreshadowing. We also heard that other story. That's right, I totally forgot. In season 1, we get that other story of this one severed employee who did accidentally get pregnant at one point, and how it was a big scandal for Lumon. So yeah, maybe they've been foreshadowing it the whole time. It's possible.
That's true. And we got that pineapple. You showed us that foreshadowing of the attempted drowning with the pineapple bobbing.
Yeah.
So maybe we're just not wanting to accept this, but it's been there all along. They do keep mentioning
Maybe.
pregnancy with like severed people, and it
Yep.
brings up a whole nother problem. What about if your husband gets you severed and makes you like, oh, we're suddenly, right? Helena did this to Mark without consent. There's gonna be a
Yep.
baby, and you don't get a say if you even want a child with said person, right? They
Yeah.
get all this power over you. That's terrifying.
It is. It's scary. It's a terrifying thought. And yeah, it raises questions of consent, of morality, so many different kind of violations that are happening there when you have a severed person getting pregnant with only one of them making that choice, only one of them being conscious to make that choice. It's dark. It's not pretty. That's for sure. Lily DeValley says, yes, pregnant because it gives them an opportunity for Helena to face down her family's patterns, choices, breaking the cycles. Okay, that's interesting, where they could use it as an opportunity for Helena to break free from the family in a sense and start to realize that she needs to do the right thing, not just for her, but for her innie as well. I mean, that's a possibility, I guess. Yeah. Man, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they're going to go the pregnant route, but after again seeing all these other potential foreshadowings, I can definitely understand why so many people do think she is pregnant, because I know that's been a huge fan theory. I've been getting a lot of comment sections of that even on my videos of people thinking that Helly's going to be pregnant. I don't know. I don't know. Sticky situation, a sticky situation. But overall, this was another great episode. I feel like whenever you have an episode like episode 4 that is so profound, where some big things do happen that kind of change the overall structure of the show entirely, you need an aftermath episode like this to see how the dust settles. How are people going to adjust to the monumental thing that just happened? So anytime we get a big episode like episode 4, I do always look forward to seeing the follow-up episode and see how are they going to handle this transition? How are they actually going to handle the aftermath of everything that happened? And I feel like they nailed it. I feel like this was a very accurate representation of how an aftermath of this would play out, of something like this would play out, especially, with Mark being withdrawn and kind of being cold and not being, man enough to kind of just tell Helly what happened. Even the smaller consequences to the Severance floor. And I thought that was super sad right when they get to the Severance floor and you see 3 desks lined up instead of 4. The whole thing just looks so different. They went as far as to literally erase Irving from the freaking photo on their desks. Like he's just completely gone now. Yeah, I mean, this was a really good aftermath episode to see how things are going to shake out after something big like we got in episode 4. So I guess the only thing left to ask before we close out is, how do you guys rate episode 5? Every single week here on our streams, we always like to hear what you guys say. What is your rating for episode 5 on a scale from 1 to 10, with 1 being horrible and 10 being perfect? Where do you guys rate episode 5 of Severance, Trojan's Horse? PM, what rating would you give this one out of 10, you think?
This is so hard.
It's a tough one.
I'm gonna say 8.
Oof, yes.
8?
Interesting.
Yeah. How about you?
Interesting. You took the words right out of my mouth. I was literally going to say 8 as well. I think this was a solid 8 episode. I think it was a pretty good aftermath episode to show us the ramifications of some of these really big decisions and big choices and big events that happened in episode 4, whether it's the losing of Irving and the aftermath of that and the funeral, and all the connections that you made with the watermelon and the Day of the Dead, and him leaving the note for Dylan to find behind the paint behind the poster. We're seeing real aftermath and real consequences to some of these actions. So yeah, I would definitely give this one a solid 8. Solid 8 out of 10 for episode 5. It was a good episode. Seems like the chat is similar as well. We got Kiwi giving it an 8, Lily gives it an 8, Susie gives it a 7, Vanessa gives it an 8. We got a 7.9 from Big Chill, an 8.5 from Howdy, a 6 to 7 from Cursimo, a 4 from Pam Jam. Oh, Pam Jam was not feeling it, but that is totally fine. We love hearing honest scores. If you hated the episode, by all means, give it a -1 if you want. That is totally cool. Yeah. We got a 6 from Seba. I think this was the weakest one from the season. Oh, okay, interesting. Hey, nothing wrong with that. We love hearing the honest opinion. So if you guys loved it, great. If you hated it, hell yeah, let us know. We got an 8.5 from Makida. We got an 8.5 from Forever Autumn. 8 pineapples out of 10. 8 pineapples out of 10. We got a 5 from James Buckley, a 6 from Golden Child, another 8 out of 10 from Samuel. Awesome stuff. So it seems like a lot of 8s, but we do have a few lower scores in there as well, which again, it was an interesting episode where it's all kind of it's a matter of perception for some of these things in terms of what are your own personal experiences, what have you been through, what kind of things do you see on the show that you relate to, you don't relate to. All of that stuff factors into score. Of course, we're all only human. But yeah, overall, I thought it was a pretty solid aftermath episode where it did show some of the really deep and lasting ramifications to some of these big, profound events that happened in episode 4. So for an aftermath kind of episode, I was satisfied. And I'm very excited to see where the second half of Severance is going to go. We got 5 episodes left. The rest of season 2, it looks like it's going to probably continue to be a very wild ride. I imagine from here on out, we're going to start diving a little bit deeper into that mysterious hallway and the elevator and where it leads and what exactly is going down on that testing room floor, and ultimately finding out just what exactly is Cold Harbor, because I imagine all of those things are going to be connected. It seems like that floor leads right down to that testing room floor where they are conducting Cold Harbor, most likely. So great episode, great first half of the season so far. I think Severance is the most interesting show on TV right now. It's certainly the most unique show on TV right now. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. You looking forward to the back half of season 2?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, but now I feel like I'm a little bit more prepared. I know it's gonna get dark,
Okay.
so
Yep.
now
Yep.
I think I got the hang of it, and I'm definitely looking forward to it. I love the show, and you're so right. The cast is amazing, the acting is amazing. Just the lines are great. I have a billion favorite quotes from the show already. So yeah, my favorite show. This will do until From comes back. This will do for sure.
This will do. This will do. It's been a great ride. Again, I totally understand now why we got so many requests to cover this show during season 1, which I wish I would have been able to do that back then. But totally understand now why this is our most requested show we've ever gotten on the channel. It is that good. It's very well written, as you mentioned, super well casted. The cinematography is great. The score is great. I love the music in this show. It's very, very unique, very different from stuff you hear in other shows. Yeah, they got something good here. They got a really good concept. They got a really good team behind them. It seems like they're driven, they're focused, they know where the story wants to go. We're hearing they're planning around 4 seasons in total. So by the time season 2 ends, we'll only be halfway through the story at that point. So I can only imagine all the other stuff that is going to be coming down the road. Holy shit. Severance. What a good show. What a good show. But I want to thank everybody again for joining us on this fine Saturday night evening for our Severance Saturdays, as we always dive into the latest episodes. Of course, we will be back again next Saturday, same time, same place, right here on the channel, as we dive into episode 6 at that point. As you pointed out, is titled Attila, which I imagine is going to get even darker. So I'm very much looking forward to that. But I want to give a huge, huge thank you to everybody out there for joining us this evening. I appreciate everybody taking some time out of their very busy day. I know the weekends are, time for people to relax. So I appreciate anybody taking the time out to hang out with us for a little bit. Very, very appreciative. And of course, huge thank you to my wonderful co-host, the great PM Philosophy. If you guys have not, definitely click on that link in the description of this live stream, sub to PM's channel, check out her most recent video and find out for yourself which Severance personality are you. But thank you again so much for joining me on these Saturdays.
Oh, thank you, Jeremy, or should I say, Big Dog? Thank you for
Oh,
having me.
Oh my God, no,
Amazing.
please not that.
So much fun.
Please not that. But yes, thank each and every one of you. Again, super appreciative. I am working on my full episode 5 breakdown. I'm also working on a Yellow Jackets breakdown. I wasn't expecting them to release 2 episodes of Yellow Jackets. I thought it was just going to be the first episode. So I'm watching the second episode, and I will have a complete breakdown on Yellow Jackets coming up on the channel in the next few days as well. Anybody who has not checked out Yellow Jackets, I highly recommend checking that one out as well. That is such a fascinating show with another really good story and a really good cast. So in the next coming days, be on the lookout for our episode 5 Severance breakdown and our Yellow Jackets season 3 premiere breakdown. And until next time, big thank you to each and every one of you. Stay safe out there, Sevies. Watch out for those Lumen drones, those Lumen employees skulking in the corner. And until next time, keep those tinfoil hats on, folks, and I will see you all on the next one.